streaming live right now. Anyway, I'm just gonna open the game so you guys can see the menu. Kind of quiet. I'll have to adjust. Let me change this around a little bit. Maybe my headphones are just low? Because my level seems okay. Okay, that should be good. Alright, we're heading back down to the bowels of the city. Where we definitely didn't murder a bunch of people. So we're going with this cop that I met. It's London. We met him in the last game. But like I met him again. We're going down and we're gonna go investigate, big quotation marks, the crime scene. No big quotation marks because it is a crime scene. Let's do it. Oh shit, it's Morgan of the Devil. Morgan of the Devil is there. Hey, level 1 cleric. Hello. Oh, okay, I didn't know I had to click. Lower wards. Need repairs? Call Garo. Car service and detailing. Detective London. We're definitely not alone down here. But when you reassured your partner that we'd have company, I didn't think you were including Blue Bloods. Ah. You know, I knew I'd forgotten to mention. What? Well, then she's a liar, babe. Because I never said that. No, I never said that. Oh, come on, babe. That's what she's like. She lies for fun. Because that's what I call you, babe. It's a pet name. You like it. No, don't hang up. Don't hang up, baby. Don't hang up. Of course I do. We gotta get to work, hon. I'll have to call you back, babe. Something just came up. London, what is this? London, who is this? Counselor Morgan, this is Adelaide Hahn. She's, well, she's a blue blood. Hey, I'm a perfectly legitimate career woman. I believe a woman can be a scumbag boyfriend. This truly is the end goal of feminism, is so we can have scumbag boyfriend girlfriends. Literally, why would you want anything else? You're speaking to a Zionist security site manager. If you need anything, miss, please don't hesitate to reach out. She handed me her card. And she put her phone number on it. Adelaide Hahn's business. She is always fucking hustling. Adelaide Hahn's business card listing her as a site manager at Sinus Security, a known front for Blue Blood criminal organization. Includes her personal contact number on top of her work details for some reason. A real business card. It even has a watermark. I'm not familiar with Sinus. We're a private security investigating firm. We provide bouncers, armed escorts, we catch cheating partners, find runaway debtors, run paternity tests, that kind of stuff. Sinus Security is a trusted partner in your business ventures, offering a suite of bodyguards, convoys, bouncers, private investigators, paternity tests, family history research, and shipping insurance. Sorry, but have we met somewhere? No, it can't be. I'd never forget a beauty like you. She's the Hound's lawyer, Hahn. Seriously? She works for those copper-headed scumbags? So we're mortal enemies? That sucks. Another life then, huh? But I'll still play nice if you will. Oh, we finally got her profile. April 16th, 183 centimeters, 73 kilograms. O negative. Oh, same. Occupation site manager, sinus security. Likes new furniture, silk clothes, and dimples. Dislikes clingy types, jealous types, and needles. Plays pickup games. Avoids laundry day. Least favorite chore is throwing out dead flowers. Also, she appears to have some kind of, like, armature on her arms. Right. So you're private security, and you're currently securing the crime scene. Yeah? What's with that tone? What you're hearing is genuine bewilderment. London, why are the police letting Blue Bloods contaminate the crime scene where a cop died? Come on, we don't have cooties. If this wasn't the location where a cop died, we'd have already turned full control over to them. What? The police contract out the security around crime scenes to private companies all the time. And around here, the private company best suited for the job happened to be a scientist. Letting them conduct their own side investigations is a small concession to keep the peace. A small concession? They're probably in there destroying evidence as we speak. We have the ARCs to preserve the crime scene. They could burn the building down. We'd still have a pristine copy. I do remember what the ARCs is. London Bridges is trying to save face. The police couldn't keep this crime scene off limits without our help, and he knows it. Gremlins would be smashing their shiny cameras and popping their expensive tires round the clock if we weren't here. Lower Wards kids take out drones by tossing shoes at them for fun. Is that why you see shoes hanging off of wires? No. I don't know why that happens. It's just a thing teens have always done for fun. Mystery solved? Fine. Maybe the cops and the Blue Bloods are all consummate professionals who never even bicker. But what kind of impartiality can I expect coming here to defend an Icaria? Well, you might get some ugly looks from those with less chivalry, but no one's gonna get in your way. We know how defense attorneys operate. We know damn well how you usually win. No one's gonna do anything that let you worm the Hound out of his life sentence on a technicality. You're sure you wouldn't prefer that, to have him back out in the streets so you can take another shot at him? Oh, so flattery, that's how you flirt. What does that mean? You think we'd ever manage to gun down the Hound of Icaria in the street? Shank him in a holding cell? Blue Bloods took him alive just fine the other day, didn't they? Yeah, and look what happened to them afterwards. So you won't tamper with the crime scene just because you want to make sure the state lobotomizes Sosuke for pentuple homicide. Yep. I mean, we also literally get paid good money. Well, I didn't skip that. We also literally get paid good money to do these kinds of jobs, so we have a reputation to maintain. Rate us 5 stars when you're done looking around, Kay? I'll be sure to leave a glowing review. So this is the main entrance. Front door looks about as heavy as I remember, but it's unlocked. What's that? How was this door found? Chopin and Rogers were the first officers on the scene responding to gunfire. Someone heard that. Good thing I cleaned up fast. Checked the area, then entered through the front door. The door was definitely locked when I arrived, but I didn't lock it behind me when I left. I didn't have any keys. Admiring our handiwork? This is a scientist installation. Who else would Blue Bloods trust to secure Blue Blood buildings? How does it lock? You never used a key before? I want to know how the lock functions. Does it lock behind you automatically? That's a good question. You looking to buy? Because I could set you up. It is a good question, Han. Why don't you answer it? Yeah, this model locks behind you by default. You need a key to get in if someone doesn't unlock it for you from the inside. A physical key. Physical keys can't be hacked. Or overridden by a police badge. Some people consider those useful features. Is that why the door's ajar? It looks like the lock's been destroyed. Was it found like this? Yeah, for as long as the ARCs has been up. Yeah, the ARC. Okay, why is it showing me ARCs again? Or is this no, it's evidence. Front door. The front door entrance to the crime scene utilizes a physical lock and key mechanism. Looks like somebody shot the lock. Designed to automatically lock behind you when leaving the building. Lock is currently now non-functional. Troy definitely had to unlock it for me to let me inside. I didn't think to see if it had locked behind me after I left. Well, it did if she closed it. Which means whoever came in after her either could get in or had to destroy the lock by shooting it to get in. Which might have been the cop. It definitely wasn't locked when me and Reyes arrived, which was around 10:20 p.m. Hang on, you and Reyes... What, were you the second officers on scene? That's right, we weren't far when the 10999 went out, quarter past 10. 10999. We're going to signify that one or more first responders' lives are in danger. Okay. Wait, that was important. I missed that for a second. No, it's terms. Where is it? Articles? No. Oh, no. 10999. There it is. Standard issue suite of biomonitors allow this code to be sent out across emergency networks automatically when cardiac activity is disrupted or blood pressure changes. Given a non-negligible chance that moderate exercise can be misinterpreted by biomonitors leading to false alarms, some departments make it a policy to avoid enabling the automatic alert function. Interesting. Long way from Precinct 254, isn't it? We were in the area. Awkward. You want a tour? You want the tour then? Actually, I'd like to check out the alley first. You know the crime scene's on the 3rd floor, right? Yeah, but it has a window that opens to the alley, doesn't it? I just prefer to start from the bottom and work my way up sometimes. Sure, we can start there. Just be careful where you step if you like those boots at all. Let's go! One problem with Blue Bloods and cops running security. I don't know who to blame for leaving their shit here. Lobo King. I'll give the moral high ground to whichever part of society learns to pick up after themselves first. Bombing ruled out in University Fire. Panic abounded last week on campus when computer labs at Nortechnica University were set ablaze in the early hours of the morning. Students and faculty skirted the campus in anxious, hunched postures as federal agents descended to the lab's vicinity, searching for signs that could point to a culprit. But as of today, the fire has officially been ruled an accident and successfully traced back to a cooling system failure in the basement's main server hub. A freak accident that has provided simultaneous relief and confusion to the community. While the fire was first reported on, many were quick to point out that similarities to other fires and bombings recently reported as sweeping eastward across the nation. Dubbed by some members of the press's work of the Witch of the West, each incident appears to have targeted data infrastructure, hitting state, corporate, and academic nerve centers and leaving behind significant financial grief in the aftermath. Hundreds of thousands of files related to student debt, all of it non-recoverable. Fuck yeah! Hell fucking yes! We're reaching out to the alumni as quickly as we can to try and piece their records back together, but frankly, a lot of them have been less than eager to speak with us, and we may have no choice but to re-examine payment plans for our current students' tuition. Federal investigative officials have no formal comments at this time, but some local law enforcement officers have described seeing federal agents frustrated with the so-called witch. Criticism of the response has begun to surface with the political realm. Senator Colt now formally calling for the Director of Investigations to testify as to the progress or lack thereof in a search for the serial arsonists and other notable... Oh, okay. I feel like I've heard stories about bombings out in the West the last few months, but I didn't know they'd all been attributed to one person, or that they're now calling them the Witch of the West. There's no mention of victims, only data centers are being targeted. But clearly this witch is hitting someone where it hurts if they've now got... What really stands out here is that the federal investigators are getting involved. Most national security agencies were absorbed into the military police complex decades ago. That bureau survived, but it's a mere fraction of the size it used to be, and very different in its function. Can we get a reading literacy pog? Let's go! I have not fucked up a single one of these. Their modern reputation is that of attack dogs, deployed by the Senate to make examples of political targets. I can't say I like the idea of them being out there hunting for serial offenders. What have you serially offended? By any chance, Morgan? I sat up there. It was much darker last night than it is now, and I only took a quick peek, but even so, this Looks like it's been moved, huh? I mean, yeah, clearly. Yes, was trash picked up last night, perhaps? Checking the model number on the side. Looks like the dumpsters this make haven't been picked up by the city in a decade. I didn't realize there was a DRM on trash cans. Hey, it's a heavy model, tough to lift, even if its wheels weren't broken. And aside for containing industrial waste, how it ended up here in a residential district isn't that hard to puzzle out, is it? It was cheaper for the Megs to dump their shit on us than it was to haul it to a landfill. Is that why I can see markings on the ground there? From leaks? Aw, you really are a tourist, aren't you? I've been in the lower wards before. But only at night, right? Rain's dirty down here. Stains the ground wherever it falls. Acid rain? Like from the history books? Not quite that bad. Just smog combined with precipitation combined with the charms of the city to make dirty rain, like I said. Lower Ward's spring water. There's a shot named after it. Tequila and pickle juice. Ugh. I mean, pickle juice is what makes something a dirty drink, so that makes sense. If you're doing dirty rain, I would probably do vodka, but I don't know how well that would go with pickle juice. Tequila is also clear, so that does work. So is the dumpster empty? Let's see. Hey, grab a glove if you're gonna... Yeah, it's mostly empty, except for a bunch of scrap metal at the bottom. Explains why I can't get it to budge. Careful, if you get your toe trapped under there, I don't look at me to help you just because I'm modded. Are you saying you couldn't budge it either? I could if a girl was cheering me on. Okay, London, thanks. Don't know what I was expecting to find, really. Now just watch it so you don't... let the lid slam. Dumpster. Yeah, serial bombings. And then evidence. The vid lid makes a very unpleasant sound as uncovered by Detective London's thorough investigating. Interesting. That's definitely going to be relevant. Sorry. And we're, like, there's got to be, like, something around here that, like, activates this and moves it. Tank probably could have moved it. He seemed, like, roided up. This fire escape would lead right up to the crime scene, assuming it doesn't come crashing down once you step onto it. Missing the ladder that would connect it to street level. You're violating fire code with this tetanus trap, Han. Building inspection's not my department. Besides, who'd want to climb up into a burning building? Firefighters. You're funny, Bridges. Even a copper firefighter wouldn't risk getting singed to save Lower Ward's property from getting burned down. Automated dependent. Interesting. So we have another robot slur. Interested parties in the automated dependent industries have on more than one occasion lobbied for copper and other terms like it. Clanker, chrome dome, microchip breath to be classified as hate speech. Incident destruction of corporate property, somebody would qualify for additional severity. Interesting. Wait, what was that? Under all but the most radical interpretations of hate speech law, however, prejudice can only be directed towards sentient living things. People, animals, or corporations. An ad could probably make the jump up there. Ads are heavy. If an android leaped onto that, the whole mess would probably come down on top of them. There we go. Fire escape connected to the room where the crime took place. Rusty and poorly maintained. It's missing the ladder you would normally let you climb up from the street. So one could only freely move back and forth between the third room where the bodies were found and the second floor room underneath it. Unless you jumped into a dumpster. Or on top of a dumpster. Yeah, modders are heavy too. Hey. Looks like the only way into the building is through the front door then. Alright, I'm done back here. So I think I've seen everything That's right. I was standing here last night when... Oh, right. What did I fucking call them? It was that Greek person with many eyes. I specifically remembered it because of Skullgirls. Because one of them has an augment that is named after that. It's Peacock is the Skullgirl, but I can't remember what the augment's called. It was dark and foggy. The kid was too far off to make out my face, even though I wasn't wearing my mask. Weren't they? What is it, Tiger? Nothing. Thought I saw someone out of the corner of my eye, that's all. Yeah? Around here, maybe it was an unlisted. What do you... Those are real? Gave to themselves, obviously, but yeah, they're real. I've met some. They inform, sometimes on what they've seen. Never come in to testify, of course. You'd think they'd stand out dressing like that, but... if their camouflage didn't work, they wouldn't be unlisted, right? What do you mean they keep to themselves? Don't they work with any of the gangs down here? Sorry, have I gotten your hopes up or something? Trust me, you've got a better chance of winning the lottery than running into one. Right, forget I asked. Informal individuals, often missing persons or unhoused, who are not being tracked by a government database. Service Citizen Minuteman Bill. Monitoring. Unlisted mostly refers to a small group of seasonal workers who travel the country migrating caravans, find work undercutting corporate contracts. Anthropological studies. Concerned about mobility. Yeah. You ready to go inside? I think so. So long as... No, I'm not with anyone else. It's just me here. Because she's shrill, princess. And delusional. You know that. I'm sure she'll catch up. She's got another girlfriend on call. She organizes them by nickname. So you were saying this used to be an apartment building? Somewhere between that and a long-stay motel, yeah. Blue Bloods didn't deviate far from that model when they took over. They call rooms like these vaults. Places to stash away a lover, witness, debtor when there's too much heat. You've gone through all these vaults, I take it? Sinus helped us with that last night, yeah. Bringing around master keys, clearing out every possible hiding place. Didn't find a red-handed killer hiding anywhere, did you? Sorry, no. So this is the Blue Bloods' forte. Then, securing people, places, and things? You could think of it that way. Guess I always assumed gangs made their money through drugs. Well, the Blue Bloods do deal here and there, but narcotics has been a rich man's game ever since the CDCA rolled in. Contraband Decriminalization Acts. Reduce the backlog of criminal cases across the country, much needed tax income. Gray wave. Right, this just lets people legally take, like, off-market drugs as long as they're, like, overcharged by corporations. I had to take my headphones off. The cord was all tangled and it was really frustrating me. If you have the funds to ride the gray wave the way House Icaria does, you can make a killing. They've got the market cornered from black to gray to white to pure green profit. The Blue Bloods hate that they have to make do with all the scraps the Megs in the house don't bother producing en masse. Professional jealousy. How ugly. Why can't these underworld overlords just bury the hatchet, get together, and screw over the consumer like reasonable people do? They've tried, if you believe the rumors. About a year ago now, there was some kind of meeting, an olive branch from the golds to the blues. Apparently, the Blue Bloods had a product that the Icaria wanted to distribute. The Icaria sell legal drugs now, though. And what kind of product could the Blue Bloods have that Icaria couldn't manufacture? Not sure. Maybe that's why it went south so fast. Blood was spilled in less than an hour. The Icaria aren't the type to keep negotiating after being spat on like that. And so, the Blue Bloods remain firmly planted in their lower wards niche. They might not like having to take the low end, but they're filling a gap in the market. And that's every proper capitalist's calling, right? Besides, the workers certainly appreciate their protection down here. Workers hire Blue Bloods for protection? But that's... all that stuff is legal so long as they're licensed, isn't it? Legal? Yes. Respectable? Most would still say no. So, household name security megs considered too high risk to be seen in the company of workers. Oh, a sex worker. Okay. Doesn't help that their average board member is easily pushing 60 years old. You aren't that far from pushing 60 yourself, are you? How old is fucking... Do we even have an age? No, we don't. Matter of opinion. Besides, I'm a very modern, forward-thinking man. Did you finish those 50 rosaries already? Right. And then the Ikaria, they don't, compete in that market? No. People at the Ikaria's Heights might patronize a courtesan or two in the Cloud Districts, but they'd never lower themselves to work alongside one. Hypocrites. That much I understand perfectly. The hypocrisy is the appeal for them. The rules don't apply to me. Couldn't ask for a more pure expression of power. Hello? Oh, we're not responding? Wait. Okay, we're good. Damn. Worse than I remember. Like a demon tore through the place. Seriously. What the hell happened here? That's what we all get paid to find out, right? Yeah. I've definitely got a head start on the rest of you, though. Shall we bring up the arcs? Sure, I'll patch you in. Allow me! If you're needed on the phone, Miss Han, please don't let me keep you here. Nonsense, I've got all the time in the world for you. Everyone's treating me like royalty today. Took the words right out of my mouth. Where shall we start? How about tall, dark, and mysterious in the middle here? That's your client. He was found standing over Chopin's body by the arresting officer. Rogers, right? Then he knocked Sosuke out? Correct. So why is it this artistic rendition of Sosuke and not a capture from Rogers' body cam? Well, it seems like at the time, their body cam was off. Seriously? Hey, I'd chew him out myself if he was here with us. It's department policy to have all sensors green when responding to an emergency. Did all this not qualify as an emergency then? Chopin and Rogers were responding to shots fired. That's not uncommon in this part of town. For two inexperienced officers, first on the scene, might not have come to mind. At least Chopin could use that excuse. Rest in peace. But apparently Rogers requests replacement body cams nearly every week. Okay, if he's that big a klutz, take away his gun once the city's done throwing him a parade. I'll, put in a request. Right then, who's next? Blood loss from the neck. Even I can tell that much. Stabbed with a bladed weapon right near the carotid artery. Very efficient. Not the kind of kill someone could make without prior experience. My client's a humble bodyguard. Come on now, I know you've got a job to do, but you'll shame him if you don't let him take credit for this one. Miller was no joke in a fight. To take him out with one clean stab to the neck using his precious signature katana? The Hound must be itching to brag about it. I'll defer the medical examiner on this matter. Thank you very much. What do you mean? Sato said the same thing. Katana to the neck, in not so many words. Is Miller's blood even on the katana? Even if it is, why would a medical examiner assume the katana was used here when my knife is a much better fit for... My knife. Where is it? Where? I gave Sosuke the knife before I left. It should have been found on him when he was arrested. It should be somewhere in the arcs. You looking for something, Tiger? If they haven't found the knife, and I ask about it anyway, that means admitting I know it's missing. If I tell him Sosuke mentioned a knife that only the killer would know about, I'd be ruining my case before I even enter the courtroom. Or worse, pointing the police in the direction of the knife's real origin. No, Was anything found on my client's person when he was arrested? Besides a gun, a sword, and a bunch of blood that did and didn't belong to him? No, not even any lint in his pockets. Why do you ask? No reason. Sometimes you gotta shake the tree to see what falls out. Or so they say. Oh, you were blindly guessing. I've been there. Something must have happened to that knife. It couldn't have just disappeared, not from a crime scene locked down like this. I'll need to find it, but I can't just go looking for it. Is this what it feels like to play with a handicap? Who the hell? Oh, I assume this is the officer. Who the hell are you, really? Why are you lying there dead right in the middle of my crime scene? That was Tariq Chopin, as you might guess, a patrol officer and the son of two loving fathers, who strongly emphasized to the chief of police their desire to see justice done. Reyes wasn't exaggerating about how he died. Run through from behind with a sword. So he would have been standing in front of the desk, then he was impaled. Then he collapsed on the floor face first, and the sword got stuck in the ground. Bad luck for the attacker, I suppose. Yeah, Dr. Satos noted in her report the stab wound was, in her words, jostled. Pardon? Like the attacker tried to pull it out, but it was stuck, so they had to jiggle it around? Hey, it's probably what saved Roger's life. Kept your client distracted and disarmed long enough to give Rogers time to rush in. Allegedly. Not where I left you, that's for sure. According to Sosuke, the only thing he does recall after I passed the baton to him is gripping his sword. You're not giving me much to work with. Fingerprints on the grip match your client's right hand, by the way. Here I was getting my hopes up. And it definitely wasn't suicide because no one else's prints are on the damn thing. Also, running yourself through from behind would be insane. Bladed weapon found at the scene of the crime, impaled into the torso of victim Tariq Chopin. The steel is chipped at several points, especially at the tip. Fingerprints on the handle match the right hand of Sosuke Ikaria. No other prints found. Blood residue at various points of the blade matches the DNA of victims Chopin, Miller, and Trey. Another murder weapon I had to wipe prints off before taking my leave. It was indulgent trying to take Trey's head off. It wasn't my only indulgence either. I must have gotten Miller's blood on the blade's tip when I dragged it across the floor. Oh, of course! Because she dragged it across the floor. That's why his blood is on the blade. And that's why they think it was the katana. I ruled out suicide once I saw he was stabbed in the back. Thank you. There are papers scattered around underneath his body. Did I knock them off the desk at some point? Maybe when the tall one hit the ground? Maybe when I was swinging that bat down on... Hang on. What kind of paper is this? I can't read a word. Really? You should get that looked at. My vision's 20/20. What am I looking at, Miss Site Manager? Those docs are internal business, ma'am. Nothing to worry your pretty little head over. How do you know they're internal business if we can't read them? You've really never seen red ink before? Never heard of it. It's corporate information security protocol. Files with special flags trigger specific print commands if you try to make physical copies. Makes you use some kind of special ink. Try to take a photo of it, and it comes out a bright blur. Paper's special too. Too much heat, humidity, becomes illegible. A corpse bleeding out on top of you is a lot of heat and humidity. So these documents contain confidential data that the Blue Bloods wouldn't want getting out? What do they say in the movies? I can confirm nor deny that. And if I subpoenaed the data? Do your worst. We got lawyers too. And unlike your client, they've got all the time in the world to stall. Besides, you and I both know exactly what the Hound's motive was. And it isn't written on those pages. It's written all over his busted up face. Sure. But you won't mind if I copy down whatever I can anyway, right? I wouldn't have any legal reason to stop you if that's what you're getting at. Documents found at the scene of the crime mostly blotted out by the blood coming out of Chopin's corpse. Currently contained confidential information of high value, but only the occasional page number, graphic, or name can be spotted. Snippets include page 21 allures, so probably dollars, required for expansion of eminent domain, with proper page of payments to support construction. Okay, yeah, so they're planning to expand with construction of some re-election councilmen long to push, colloquially referred to as lower wards. Yeah. Oh, these are the... Yeah, these are the bills that are proposed. That's what those are. The big one. He made a strange face when I shot him and a loud slam when he hit the floor. This one. Real long rap sheet with a short ending. Buckshot to the torso. Died instantly. Buckshot? Flexware on his mods put his time of death at 9:44 p.m. Killed by his own weapon. Comes up a bit short of poetic justice, but it doesn't look like he was any kind of struggle for it beforehand. But how did someone manage to get it off his hands? It wasn't any great feat, I assure you. Tex identified it as double-barreled Mag US, and oh, the little face. Hey, how'd you know the gun was his? He's still wearing the holster and arcs. Was I mistaken? No. About a week ago, Tanks here was stopped and frisked by a patrol unit and found this here gun on him. They found this gun on him, and they just handed it back to him? He bought it and paid for it above board. So this gun isn't jailbroken. You have tag data from the murders? No, we don't. Strange. According to Tex, the gun is jailbroken. What happened between last week and last night that he got the tag stripped off? Something that made him think this piece would see action soon. I'd advise you to brace yourself before opening the autopsy photos for this one, Counselor. Yes, this is sufficiently obfuscated. A lot to take in. The skull was crushed? Yes, but the cause of death was blood loss from a laceration across the neck. He hit the floor and bled out in seconds. Everything else you're seeing is post-mortem. Overkill. Not the word I'd use for this kind of shit. Oh, calm down. I didn't do it for the fun of it. In this specific instance. The victim had modded eyes. Seems to me like someone didn't want to take any chances. How does she know he has modded eyes? Bullshit. No one in the lower wards would get optic mods with the recording functionality. You wouldn't be welcome anywhere. You gonna claim the Hound of Icaria didn't know something that fundamental? Nah, he bashed his brains in for the fun of it. I'm sure to a law-abiding citizen like yourself, we're all scum of the earth who deserve... I'm pretty scummy myself, huh? Defense attorney, remember? Who the hell deserves shit like this? Deserves? What does that have to do with anything? I'd take it this bad as what did the deed? Matches the splinters found inside his wounds if you had any doubts. There's nothing here about Sosuke's fingerprints. You think we can get anything but partials off of that? It's practically splinters. Makes sense. I was the one who actually swung it down, and I was wearing gloves by then. Whoever did this, they were damn enthusiastic. You know how hard they'd have to swing to crush a skull to break the bat itself? That's what I was saying. I can imagine. Cheap wooden bat used to bludgeon Trey's skull post-mortem slipped beyond repair during the bludgeoning. Fingerprint analysis proves inconclusive. Barring Sosuke from exiting the other room before I used it to destroy Trey's eyes, but no one else knows that, and I have no way of informing them. What a pain. There's some faint blood that has been smeared here. Did it belong to this victim? And Sosuke. Wonder if maybe the bodies hadn't gotten moved around for some reason, but... Your client's legs and feet were soaked in others' blood when he was arrested. And he would have had to sneak up on Chopin in order to stab him in the back. You think he slid his feet across the ground to avoid making noise? Does he say otherwise? I'll let you keep guessing on that one. Papers scattered all over his desk. Suppose I'm partially to blame. I didn't exactly memorize his setup before I started searching for the mask. What's this? What'd you find there? A note? Freak's note. Spawn reading M. Icaria to M. Icaria. He spelled it wrong at first. Handwriting is by and large a match for other documents penned and initialed by Creek found at the crime scene. Yeah, M. Icaria. M. Icaria. Looks like M. Icaria, actually. He's dead, London. I was gonna let the spelling mistake slide. Right, sorry, but M? That's gotta be Makoto, right? You know Makoto? I know he's the Ikaria's heir apparent. From what I hear, he's appropriately frightening young scion. He's really quite something. But why would his name be on Creek's desk? He was Creek's real target the other day. Sosuke was some kind of consolation prize. Bagging the Hound was a consolation prize? These punks had their sights set high. Yeah, like no one taught them not to stare at the sun. Windows open to the fire escape in the alley below. There's a thin misting of blood across them. Got a good guess as to who that belongs to. This is where we found Creek, leader of the pod. Ballistics tell us the shooter was standing in front of the desk, near where my client was found. Your words, not mine. Nasty slug burst in his chest, blew blood back on the windows behind them. The open windows. Hell of a spread. Yes, it is. Did someone open these, or... No, they were open when we secured the scene. Any fingerprints? Plenty on the handles there from Creek and his pod. That's where the handles are? Something wrong? Definitely, but how the hell could I explain why I know that? In the crime position behind opens the alley and the fire escape. Blood spatter across the windows has, through forensic analysis, been traced back to where a Mag-US shell split inside Creek's ribcage, blah, blah, blah. Short-barreled maglev firearm recovered from the scene. Ankerton, aka Tanks. Okay, modified illegal extent. The slugs fire detonate after penetrating their target. Jesus Christ. Horribly gaudy, but it got the job done. Last I saw it, I left it in Sosuke's waistband. I mean, my question is, for the cops, it's like, so he came out of there after being beaten, murdered everyone, and then went back in to wait for the cop to arrive so he can kill him? It just doesn't make any sense. No, sorry, I guess I'm wondering about the keys around his neck and the arcs. Oh, well, one was a master key. Could unlock any other door in the building. The other key we eventually paired to a small safe in his desk. Empty, though. Suppose that's all irrelevant, since he apparently died with the keys on his person. Yeah, they caught my eye too, to be honest, but not every detective's instinct pans out. So, who was this guy? Curious? Only professionally. I don't care who he was before I killed him. Criminal record dating as far back as it goes. Sealed when he turned 18. What makes you so sure he has a juvenile record, then? The more experience these guys get, the more time in between their arrests. Pattern I'm seeing, he was pretty damn experienced by the time he was of age. You trying to compliment him? I wasn't trying to insult him, Han. Anything you'd like to add? Nah, nothing I want to say in front of you two. If you want to say a few words, the detective and I could step. Only words I have are for his killer. I'll deliver to them in person, or not at all. Fair enough. Do you have any idea why someone might want to hurt this Creek fellow? That's not funny. That dog you're defending. It's a fair question, Han. Give it fair consideration. Besides the Ikaria, the Rust, or our city's finest, no. Creek was charismatic and driven. Plus, he made us a lot of money. No true blue would want him gone. The bloodthirsty Ikaria soldier he was interrogating, however, probably wasn't a huge fan. What about family? This is getting old fast. Younger brother's listed as next of kin. Leave his brother out of this. Hell, leave me out of this. Rooting through a person like you're picking at zits. Well, seems he's out of town anyway. Taking summer lessons at How Mariner U. It's a good school. An expensive school. Younger brother has no listed occupation. Also no priors and no juvenile record. TAD at his age? Poor kid. Bills for that cost an arm and a leg. Creek must have been sending him. Detective, did you just leak the confidential medical data of a non-suspect to a third party? Hey, you don't have to report. How about I buy you an ice cream or something? Bribery too? You're digging yourself pretty deep. Is it still bribery if I'm the government official? Screen. I turned it on to distract Tanks long enough to grab his gun. I remember choosing not to turn it back off. Interesting setup. Powerful setup. Was blaring when we arrived. The sound system, I mean. One of the CS texts is a real audio file. Said it broke her heart how loud they must have blared the speakers all the time. Where is it out? She said. Interesting. This was still playing, started the environment, really giving me a headache when I turned it off. Didn't enjoy having to turn it back on before I left just to leave no trace. I wouldn't count on orcas to value the longevity of their tech purchases. Hmm. Yeah, it's just the door, looks like. Through this door is where they were keeping Sosuke, and I let him off his leash. I'll leave that for after I finish in here. Oh, okay. So there is something else to click on? The piles, we got the table, we got these two bodies, we got this body, we got him, we have this body, we got that body. Oh, wait. Oh, this thing. Oh, the desk, I guess? Creek's fine wood desk. He seemed particular about it. Maybe in no small part because it had a priceless no mask hidden inside it, but I assume you've been through this data pad here? Front to back, we didn't find anything we didn't already know. Seems like Creek was smart enough to use it for payments and nothing else. How do you manage that? Even gangsters need spreadsheets. Attachment processing, non-standard identification info, sold to allow payment or processing of usual rare forms. Partial's fingerprints were found attached to those of Creek and Chopin. Dark cards struck quite firmly into the attached card reader. Couldn't avoid touching it. I had to at least pretend the dark card would work. But I did... Oh, I guess I didn't wipe it. Oh, did I not wipe this down? I thought I did. Hence the paperwork you see scattered about. They really did everything by hand. PPP is what they call it in organized crime. Paper and pencil protocol. Helps the organs keep their books off the books. Or at least in the format that's easier to destroy should push come to shove. Did you run a check on this credit card that's jammed in here? Nah, not surprised you don't recognize it. That there's a dark card. Wow, tell me more. Wow, tell me more! It's an untraceable wallet in the palm of your hand. I would hope any wallet could fit in the palm of your hand, detective. But you really can't find the owner? Can't trace any of its transactions? Most of what we can tell is the datapad registered calls to dark card networks around 9:40 p.m., but it timed out. What does that mean? That the transfer didn't go through. Either someone got cold feet or they forgot their password. Happens to the best of us. Dark card evidence. Without the fingerprint of the owner and their 24-digit passcode. Oh my god. Forensics show that all the past fingerprints have been wiped off at some point. Okay, no, there we go. Only reason I had to take my gloves off in the first place was because of this useless piece of plastic. By the way, why is this cloth been flagged? Not sure. Forensics didn't find any blood on it. Who flagged it? Lady Rockford herself. Could be that she fat-thumbed it. Yeah, I'm sure it's nothing. Okay. Looks like that's everything in here. Well, I think we should examine it if Emma Rockford fucking flagged it. We need to know what she knows. We should examine this. She didn't fat thumb it. She probably did it for a reason. Well, I don't envy either of you of your workloads. It's a mess in here. It's a lot of blood, that's for sure. I'm impressed you haven't gotten nauseous, miss. I'd be right at home here if you weren't all poking your noses around. Shoot, I just remembered. I'll never hear the end of it if I don't check in with my partner after saying I would. You two keep going if I step out. You two good to keep going if I step out to make a call? A call? Is your partner your mom? And is your mom blind? Send a text. Thanks for your understanding. Maybe he was the one with the weak stomach. You be sure to let me know if you're feeling faint. I can keep going. We're nearly finished anyway. I'd stick to the arcs if I were you. Nothing behind that door that's better seen in person. You've been such a gracious host up until this point, Mrs. Han. Why the cold feet now? It's ugly in there. Uglier than this? Different kind of ugly, then. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, that's pretty ugly. I warned you. Don't worry, I can stomach it just fine, so long as I can understand it. Why did Creek's pod torture my client? I don't know that they did. Sosuke told me they electrocuted him, Han. Well, they didn't because he's still alive, but you know. They probably just grounded him, Low-grade currents applied every few minutes stops most mods from rebooting. So no SOS pings, no adrenaline bursts pulled out of his ass. And the pliers, hammers, and syringes, what purpose did they serve? They could have just killed Sosuke when they failed to nab Makoto. Instead, they dragged him down here. Why? To try and get info on Makoto's itinerary? Get enough intel to make another run at him? If there are any answers for me in here, I'll need a grout scraper to find them. Has all this blood been tested, Miss Han? Enough of it has. Besides Sosuke, who else would it belong to? It's a bit lazy, but it's not as if there's more here than the last time I visited. Sosuke really did lose a lot of blood. By the time he stumbled out of here, a stiff breeze should have been enough to knock him over. Is he really such a badass that he still managed to take out a police officer before he'd even noticed? Not as if I'd feel nothing looking at someone else's handiwork. The product of their violence. But it's like an artificial sweetener. No complaints for that first instant. And the aftertaste comes. Empty calories. I'll just be hungrier again later. Faster. Best to stay disciplined. It's water, cold enough that the condensation's on the outside of the bucket. Is that water for sponge baths? Just a simple way to keep a guest from dozing off. Temperature shock makes caffeine look like a sleep aid. It's coming after your claim you didn't know if Sosuke was tortured? You know what the other bucket's for, then? I know you said you got a weak sense of smell, but do you really need a hint here? Ah. But then this last bucket here is... What is that? Trash? Cloth and rope. Bindings. Or bandages. See, they were nursing him back to health. I'll run your theory past Sosuke next chance I get. This must be what's left of what they were keeping Sosuke tied up with. The layer clearly cut with something sharp. They would have had to use something. Yeah, this door doesn't even lock. Not after I moved the bat, barring it from the outside. So he was brought here, tied up, questioned, then he breaks out, bursts in the next room, cuts up 2 of his captors, and blows the other 2 away. That's what you think happened. That's what it looks like. And then what, Chopin runs in and turns his back on a violent criminal? Don't strain yourself trying to make it sound improbable. Cops are dumb. If the Hound crouched in a corner, he'd have his chance soon enough. Hell, he probably just played dead. Walking into that scene out there, you'd think some patrol officer would go around checking pulses? Why would my client go to all that trouble to get the jump on an officer? Why not just run away? Hell, why not ask him for medical treatment? Because he was standing in the middle of the 4 men he just killed? Ugh. I know that Sosuke had no logical reason to attack Chopin, but so what? Even Sosuke himself says he would have been acting on instinct. Would instinct tell him that Chopin was in between him and his escape? Hypodermic needles, probably not packing anything healthy. Sosuke better hope they were at least sanitized. Not sure Sarah can treat an infection with gauze and rubbing alcohol alone. But those needles there... The design of these needles seems a little odd. Someone will tell you sooner or later, so... They're projectiles. Load them into a gun and fire away. Sosuke was captured by men wielding needle guns. Does Sinus Security have any peacekeeping tools they'd like to disclose as having recently gone missing? Projectile hypodermic needles recovered from what Sosuke, yeah. Non-lethal anesthetics found in Sosuke's bloodstream. Bone containing stimulants and drugs commonly marketed as truth serums. You're cursing up the wrong pipe. Creek could find tools all on his own, and we're not that kind of operation. An operation where the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing. More like the right hand's just been washed, so if you have to handle some garbage. Sinus is that legitimate. Why aren't all the Blue Bloods working legal jobs then? Not enough positions available. You gotta earn like hell to be considered for a job on this side of the fence. Creek and his pod weren't bringing in that kind of money. They liked Creed's pod where it was. Who's they? Upper management. That mask is a death sentence, crafted specifically for one very special customer. I'm just the one given the honor of hanging on to it until... And did upper management like Creek? I'm just a humble site manager, miss. I would know. Sure. So do all these needles contain anesthetics? No, there's also stimulants and barbitocene. Hypnotic sleep aid drug for active duty military personnel. Prescribed anti-anxiety and anti-seizure medication. Depicted in popular culture and some drug manufacturers' promotional materials as truth serum. Barbitocene resulted in truthful confessions in only 2.2% more often than booze. Interesting. Like the truth serum? You can get sued for selling it as such. It makes you talk. It doesn't make you what you say the truth. So they wanted Sosuke talking? But what did they ask him? Your client can't remember or isn't willing to recall. There's really no one else alive who would know. Yeah? Getting a headache, but it's not from anything sensory. I should know more about this crime scene than anyone. Why can't I piece it together? If I can't piece it together, the cops will never trace any of this back to me, right? So why do I feel so ill at ease? Okay, thanks for your patience, ladies. Did I miss anything? Nah. Oh. Would you have felt better if you had? I'm gonna head out now, actually. I've got a long day tomorrow. You're going back by yourself, then? You sure? I could get a ride out of the neighborhood. I'm sure Miss Han already made sure we'll both get out of here without any trouble. That is her company's area of expertise, isn't it? Of course. Well, at least let me walk you out. Sure, why not? Safe travels. So, Detective, there's something you didn't want to talk about in front of the professionals at Sinus Security? Thanks for picking up on that. Reyes will be upset that you never checked in. Yeah, right after this I will. This room. Are we directly underneath the crime scene? Yep, same fire escape right there. Same type of window, too. Has this room been scanned into the arcs? Yeah, but nobody found anything noteworthy. Except Sinus being sloppy. So what were you actually doing when you left Han and I back there? Something Han said earlier about how no true blue would wish harm on Creek. Her phrasing stood out to me. Because it implies the existence of false blue bloods? Because it reminded me of one of the first things I learned in this city. There are no monoliths. Mega's Orca City Hall, there's always factions. And among the blue bloods, the party lines are especially visible. So I made a call, not to Reyes, and confirmed some things. And I figure I owe you a little hint or two, considering the tone of that the last message I delivered. That message warned me not to broaden the scope of my investigation. Getting hints from you might be self-defeating. Not these hints. Trust me. So what faction did our pal Creek belong to? The Youngbloods. Opposite end of the compass from the Old Guard. The conservative Blue Blood leadership. All of them older than 70, some of them pushing higher than 90. Han said Creek was too useful for anyone to want him dead, but my sources don't agree. Creek talked, said things aloud that others only whispered. Ambitious, charismatic, up-and-coming, and young. Could easily see him being very unpopular with all the wrong people in the Old Guard. That's interesting info, Detective, but it doesn't exactly flip this case on its head. I already know who killed Creek. The police have already decided it's Sosuke. Learning that he had some occupational hazards will hardly convince the jury otherwise. My client's the one standing accused, and everyone already knows why Blue Bloods and Icarias would want to kill each other. Do you? They're rival gangs. They hate each other. Do you know why? It's the same reason all the Blue Blood leadership is ancient, while all their muscles made up of orphans and delinquents. 30 years ago, the Ikari betrayed their peace with the Blue Bloods, started killing them. And they didn't stop for days. By the end of it, every single member of the leading Blue Blood families under the age of 40 was dead. Well, I can see how their kids would grow up to hate the Ikaria, yeah. You're not getting it, Tiger. Their kids didn't grow up at all. If that's the case, how are the Blue Bloods still around? For one thing, the Ikaria had bigger fish to fry. This was right before the Red Decade. They spent every second of the next 10 years positioning themselves so they could come out on the other end as Neobility. Second, what remained of the Blue Bloods found a new niche to fill, taking in delinquents furious at a country driven off a cliff by adults before they could even get a chance to vote. Blue Bloods swelled their ranks up to new heights by looking out for the little guys during those years, in exchange for favors down the line. Lastly, and most importantly, they survived because they still had hope. You're serious? I am. It's a powerful weapon. Hope for what? Hope that the Ikari had missed one, that they'd fled the country. Hope that a promised heir would grow strong and return one day, a triumphant little lord with overflowing riches and overwhelming power. Sounds like a fairy tale. Those endure for a reason. Well, now you know. A warning to watch where you step. It isn't exactly worth much if you're fumbling around in the dark. Fairy tales and warnings. What's up? Hey, you ever pay attention to any of this graffiti down here? Scrawlings about Lobo and the Cyberpunk and... Oh, Lobo and the Cyberpunk and HBK, increasingly. I haven't seen that myself. Was gonna say Red Hood. Why are you asking? You feel a chill down your spine? Bah, except for HBK, that's all old news. Ghost stories and campfire tales. There are a lot of campsites around here. Lots of places to start fires. The Red Hood, haven't heard that in who knows how long. It's one of the oldest. Rough story. Based on a real event? Nothing worth recounting. I'll take your word for it. Hey, did you or your pals in the OC ever hear about some kind of blue blood hunter? Like a bounty hunter? Or huntsman, maybe? Where'd you hear that? Sosuke thinks he might have overheard talk of something like that while he was in captivity. Does it mean anything? Nope. I don't like the hesitation there, detective. Just an urban legend. I would have said the same thing about Unlisted before this afternoon, and yet, fair enough. If you see a huntsman and live to tell the tale, I'll buy you as many lotto tickets as you want. Well, it'd only take one. But what's gotten into you that you're feeling all superstitious? Guilty conscience? You mean about working with the mafia? A psychologist would call that projecting. Ouch. Too far? Nah. Didn't feel a thing. I don't know why I asked, really. I guess I've just had an odd feeling all day. Like deja vu? You've been here before? No, I hate that feeling. It's whatever the opposite of that would be. The unnerving certainty that you're in uncharted waters. Scary stuff. 8:32 p.m., August 14th, 2086. Morgan's apartment. Ikaria, Blue Blood, Megs, Orcas. Dirty cops and criminal informants. Lines drawn back and forth across a battlefield like a spider's suspension bridge. Dizzying in its complexity, frail along any given strand. But one wrong move and you're completely ensnared. Priorities. The Ikaria don't care about who tore through Creek's gang, but they would prefer Sosuke doesn't spend life in prison for killing a cop. The Blue Bloods want to tear Sosuke's throat out, but if Han's taken in her word, they're settling for 5 counts of murder. Can I take Han at her word? Is she a young blood like Creek, or is she with the old guard? Could I have asked London that? If I had, could I have trusted his answer? Because it turns out Kasim London is much, much harder to read than I anticipated. And I can't even trust my client to act in his own self-interest. The man's a bodyguard by trade and a zealot for his house. The trial starts tomorrow. Do I still need more information? Is there time to find it? No. What I need right now is a nightcap. Can't fall asleep, then I know I'm in trouble. Until then, guess sleep will have to wait. It's unlocked. Pardon me for dropping in at such a late hour, Counselor Morgan. Standing there in my doorway, she cut through the light like a blade of spilt ink. But twice as sharp and not nearly as familiar. It is outside of normal consultation hours, miss. She purses her lips. Like lily petals shying away from the moonlight. She's waxing awfully poetic. What's a smirk by any other name? Please, call me Mireille. Any last name, Mireille? The question floats in the air like curling cigarette smoke. I could tell she was used to the smell. I'll leave that up to your imagination. Self-assured and unapologetic, the unspoken family name loud as a signature, written in blood. You're from House Icaria. Might I step inside? She blinks. Her head turns a millimeter. A forked tongue testing the temperature of the air. She wasn't asking for permission. Just you? What about your friends in the hallway? She raises an eyebrow, but keeps staring at the floor. She's surprised at my perception of the unseen threat, but not quite impressed. I don't think they need to join us. Do you? She was the kind of woman to make you remember. Smoking could kill. We got a new woman! Let's go! Date of birth October 1st. 163 centimeters. Occupation representative. Like sipping alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and arachnids. Just like sunrises, black tea, and photographers. Favorite smell is dojo floors. You know what? That's fair. The best at making use of people and the worst at hiding my distaste. Yeah, I could tell from your profile picture. How can I be of service, Mireille? You're already being quite accommodating, both to me and my family's interests. I came here tonight to be of service to you. I understand that you're somewhat new to this underworld of ours. I'm grateful for the offer, Mireille. But, inexperienced as I am, I've gathered that House Icaria didn't come into its fortune by being generous. Would you like to know how House Icaria did come into its fortune? I know you operate a lending corporation with a significantly diversified portfolio. Yes, the good old IFG, the public face of the Icaria criminal empire, clean-shaven as it's become. And I know you founded a pharmaceutical company and profited immensely when it went public. And before that, I know your family became nobility during the years of civil unrest. No doubt by being well positioned when the time came to reprivatize our nation's interests. Yes. And before that, I know you slaughtered the Blue Bloods 30 years ago. Very good, Counselor Morgan. You've acclimated to our waters remarkably fast. What I don't know is why Makoto Icaria has been the target of multiple kidnapping attempts over the past year. You can't fathom a guess as to why the Blue Bloods might want to ransom the family's heir. That's the only guess I can make. It strikes me as shallow. Nothing more dangerous than waters you don't know the depth of. As you said, 30 years ago, the Icaria cartel, an unrecognizable band of brutes and drug smugglers, compared to today, massacred the respectable Blue Bloods and left their geriatric leadership to die on the vine. But we thrust the knife much deeper than that. I love her, like, holographic, like, boa thing that she's got going on here. You went after their heirs and their entire future. Are you familiar with the genetic factor authentication? Does she have a holographic cigarette? What is going on here? Like, she has a real cigarette, and then she has this smoke around her shoulders, and then she has, like, a holographic cigarette? Using DNA as a password? Blood, specifically. Easier than memorizing a string 3 billion characters long. But GFA has fallen out of favor, hasn't it? Live blood samples provide a combination with a username and a passkey. Conducted in-person sample, blah blah blah. Bird biological elements, largely unadopted throughout the business world. Few corporations are interested in tying information or resources into specific bloodlines. Still offered some of the most prestigious secure banks in the world. Families with particularly long lineages have been known to favor GFA for what are effectively symbolic reasons. A bad bet. They already had all their offshore accounts, business titles, property deeds. The Blue Bloods thought they had already won, that they were establishing a dynasty. So they made their political marriages, they bound their alliances and fortunes in literal blood. GFA was both a financial and symbolic laundering of the Blue Bloods' past. Their children, now married, clean-cut, and perfectly respectable, would prosper alongside wealth no longer tainted by ill-gotten gains. So that GFA registry became Ikaria's checklist. We went through and crossed out anyone that could have accessed those funds. Now all of it sits untouchable overseas in encrypted digital warehouses and some of the oldest, most austere banks in the world, collecting interest that will never be claimed. Does that answer your question as to why they'd target Makoto? No, and you know it doesn't. Because if they thought they could lock you out of your coffers by killing Makoto, they wouldn't be trying to take him alive. You're paying attention. I like that. We don't use GFA, and Makoto is heir to House Ikaria, aka to the Ikaria Financial Group. He'd never be tied to our legitimate banking information. Why not? What if he wants to buy a lollipop? A lollipop would be provided for him. The family's black market proceeds and its white market holdings must never mix. You divided your house right down the middle. Pardon the expression, but how can you stand atop the backs of many? And you all take this division that seriously? Deadly seriously. That is our family's rule, dating back centuries. Either you serve the house or you serve its interests. Never both. So you're assigned to either the criminal organization, what's registered as the IFG, or to managing the family's legitimate business holdings, like Rennigan. But that means you are nearly as much of an outsider to the Ikaria Financial Group as you are. Nearly is doing a lot of work there. Who do you answer to, then? Who controls the Ikaria's legitimate empire? Until Makoto marries his mother. And I take it Makoto isn't solely responsible for the house's affairs at his age. Makoto wields great authority as the heir, but yes, the house is led by his father Raphael, and more directly by his grandfather, our patriarch, Daisuke Ikaria. Daisuke? I'm gonna eat a Rice Krispies treat, because I have one, and I'm hungry. Give me a second. Sorry about the crinkles. Okay. Have a sip of my coffee. And then get back to what we were doing. I see, but that puts me back where I started. The Blue Bloods want to hold Makoto hostage to gain leverage on the likes of Daisuke. Daisuke? How can I put this? Had things gone even slightly differently 30 years ago, the Blue Bloods would be the ones shaking hands with politicians, marrying ambassadors, and sitting in boardrooms. Some of them believe it can still be so, if the right match were made. They want to marry into House Ikaria? But Makoto and all the real Blue Bloods are older than... They'd find an age-appropriate adoption. You're missing the point. They need Makoto alive and well to negotiate that kind of reversal of fortune. So they've been trying to capture him for the past year. But every blue blood I met today seemed to care a lot more about getting revenge for their dead men than kidnapping a preteen. How many of them do you think Sosuke's cut down in the last year he's spent repelling their attempts? Is that a source of internal conflict? If the old guard are throwing young bloods into Ikaria Shredder en masse trying to capture Makoto just to elevate themselves, I suppose that all might total up to enough motivation for them to torture Sosuke, yeah. I had heard Sosuke was wounded. No one informed me he had been tortured. You know him, I take it? As you've gathered, Sosuke deals in matters unrelated to my side of the family. But he is still family. Speaking of my side, I have a duty as a representative of my wing to the house to stress that we do not want this trial to be prolonged. So the bean counters don't care for the extra attention. That makes sense. Do you care about the outcome? A win is always preferable, but not a necessity. Makoto Ikaria hired me to prove Sosuke's innocence. If he's the one signing the checks, did he say why he hired you? He hired you for 2 reasons. Reason 1, his options are limited. More limited than he suggested, no doubt, to keep a strong front. The entire house is currently being audited by the state. Our usual legion of lawyers and accountants are already billing hours as fast as they can, so he wouldn't have his pick of the litter. So one half of the family can't talk business at the dinner table with the other half, but you share a pool of lawyers? Lawyers can be trusted to be discreet, can they not? I love this lady. I love her so much. Yeah, we can read between the lines. So then you'll understand reason 2. Whatever lawyer he did find through Ikaria's usual connections would, like me, do whatever's best for the house as a whole. And not what's best for Sosuke. I'll make an amendment. 3 reasons. Makoto knew that if he didn't assign him any lawyer, Sosuke would just stay silent as the state dragged him off to be chained, rather than inconvenience the house any further. Well, yeah. I've known Sosuke for less than a day, and even I can tell he's never seen a cross he wouldn't jump at the opportunity to bear. That explains why Makoto would hire someone without connections to the Ikaria. You slow-rolling another addendum that'll clear up why on earth my name came across his desk? Littered with crayons and times tables, as I'm sure it was? I hope I've been able to elucidate matters for you, Counselor Morgan. Masterfully subtle way to say we're done talking. Now, I might ask you for a small favor in return. Pass this message to Sosuke. If you see a way out, take it. Do you understand what you're asking him to do? Even if Sosuke took a plea bargain, even if I somehow got the other charges reduced to manslaughter, self-defense, the state thinks he killed a cop. The message is for Sosuke, not you. Your interpretation of it is irrelevant. End of conversation. As she reaches the exit, she turns back to look at me. Lingering in the doorway like the warm buzz of a strong, dark cocktail. But your assessment is correct. If this were just 4 dead blue bloods, our dim little underworld could balance out the ledger unassisted. If that cop hadn't shown up last night... Do you know something about the late Officer Chopin? City in mourning after death of city councilman's beloved adoptive son in the line of duty. All I know is the funeral dirge will make those 4 boys' deaths sound like a disinterested sigh. By the way, I must admit you have a lovely apartment, Counselor. Changing subjects as subtly as a bullet train hopping on its tracks. Quite spacious for a defense attorney. Yeah, place wouldn't sell after the tram route got diverted. I negotiated down the rent and installed all the soundproofing myself. Can't open the windows without being treated to the sounds of the city, then? There's always a cost. That's one mystery solved, then, isn't it? Enjoy the rest of your quiet evening, Counselor. The door glides to a close behind her, easy as a question left unasked. I'm left here hanging on a single held breath of stillness, listening as the deafened thud of her honor guard's implied violence stomps down the hallway behind her. I was still leaned back in my chair, staring holes into my ceiling after the scent of her expensive tobacco faded into null. Savoring it while it lasted was beyond me at the moment. My attention's elsewhere. The case is knotted and twisted like a gnarled oak. Don't I think I've found my rhythm? The blade runs dull. Carving is an exercise in patience and vision. You need to start with a clear picture of what you want. I want some answers. But for now, I'll sleep. Tomorrow in court, I'll just have to keep whittling away at the wood until I fashion something halfway usable. And, well, if that doesn't work, I'll use a chainsaw. God damn, this is fucking written! Let's go! The hell is this? Hey, cool kid. Yes, you. Trying to look all stoic, staring out the window. Little late to try and look detached after that thing you pulled the other day. So that wasn't a joke, making that announcement in front of the class? You trying to start a detective club or something? What mysteries? Disappearing cleaning supplies? Books not getting returned to the library? Sounds lame. Well, not like that's your fault. Everything's lame. Good luck finding members. Everyone around here always knows what they're going to do. Already knows what they're going to do after school. And tomorrow. And next year. They're all staring down the barrel of a lucrative career in telling other companies how to provide web services. Or whatever the hell this school is supposed to train us for. A lawyer? If you say so, cool kid. The Megs will probably have robots doing that by the time you graduate, but sure. Law school's supposed to be hard to get into. You'll need a record that doesn't suck. Getting the club you started shut down because you couldn't get anyone to join probably won't help. Wow, so confident. You really are a cool kid. "11:42 a.m., August 15th, 2086. State Building, floor 48. Morgan, please. This is... Hold still and relax. This will be over soon. I thought you were joking about the makeup. Of course I wasn't joking. A face like yours is invaluable in the courtroom. And you think covering me in concealer and blush and applying eyeliner would help me appeal to what demographic exactly? You know the names of all this stuff? I'm a modern man. I know the names of many things, including makeup. Is that your eyebrow gel? Yes? It's cakey. Do you want to do the rest? I think some of the jury might find that his wounds make him look rugged. And furthermore, as from an aesthetic perspective, leaving some of his buttons undone will... Excuse me? You're clearly a very devoted martial artist, Sosuke. You should be proud to display your well-defined collarbones as a fruit of your efforts. Just hold still. Appearances matter in the courtroom. 95% of defendants who are ever seen in prison garb at trial are found guilty. I don't doubt your tactics work, Morgan. My tactics include getting your suit pressed. Do you want me to wrinkle it back up? I just find them unpalatable. Trying to get the jury, these civilians, to pity me is shameful. You're worried about honor? Really? You're already a cybernetic ninja, Sosuke. Don't be a stereotype. Don't call other people stereotypes. He's right, Adonai. And he's more of a cybernetic samurai, since he's sworn himself to a wealthy land-owning noble. And also he has a katana. Ninjas generally use, like, farm tools or, like, straight-bladed swords that required less craftsmanship. Because they were poor. I'm confused, Sosuke. Is it honorable how your family makes their money? Made their money? I'm not talking about morality. I'm talking about having principles. Yes, they're subjective, and yes, they can be hypocritical. But the further you stray from the common path, the more you need them. I mean, what about her? What would Sarah be like if she didn't have tenets to guide her programming? Tenets are just the thing like that specifically are like rigid rules. I can only imagine. But some people, believe it or not, enjoy their freedoms. Adrift in the middle of the ocean, you're free to go in whatever direction you want. Without a compass, you'll just die of exposure. If you only ever follow exactly what the compass says, you'll sail north until you freeze to death. The point is, if you have a compass, you know which direction north is. Fortunate for us all, then, that the state is a 1,000,000 megawatt North Star pointing towards complacency at all times. And the media is like the wind. And without wind, you'll get stuck in the tide. It was a nice try, Sarah. Forget it. Do whatever you want with your brushes, woman. And you're pouting again. Great. Sarah, just keep him talking. What? If I'm talking, how will you? Trust me, I've done more delicate work before. Sarah. Small talk. Gladly, Adonai. Sosuke, do you happen to have any tattoos? Are the jury gonna ask about that or something? They might. Oh. Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I do have a tattoo. A Koinu on my back. Koinu, a guardian dog. You have a tattoo of a dog? It's a fierce guardian deity. Like a Labrador or... Like a great, fierce... A big dog. Perhaps you should have it changed to some other design, like, say... Like a dragon. Like a dragon. She winks at the camera and sparkles her eye. Jesus Christ. There's no switching. Buyer's remorse must be unbearable. There's no buyer's remorse. Thank you for entertaining my questions last night, Sosuke. Did she ask you about your dimensions? The subject might have come up. She's a talkative one, isn't she? Sorry if she kept you up all night. No, she's no trouble, just curious. Reminds me of... We discussed history. Oh, well then she must have put you right to sleep. Adonai, it was his choice of subject. So you read history, Sosuke. Here I assumed you spent all your free time frowning in the corners of rooms with your arms crossed. We talked about the Roman Empire, for your information. And criminal empires. Nothing too detailed, I hope. But Sosuke, I still don't understand. What did you mean when you said criminal organizations used to be structured differently? Only that the old ways don't fit our new 21st century world. Old ways? Well, he's talking about race, Sarah. Race? I don't understand. Well, that's to be expected. After all, you share 98% of your components with a washing machine. That is an untrue and unflattering comparison. Maybe you do get it. Look, Sarah, names like Mafia, Gokudo, Sanhei-hui, they all came from different cultures and they all refer to a kind of path. An outsider's path, and the pride that comes with living by your own set of rules. Those were the first criminal organizations. Underground guilds, lending systems, militias, secret societies. Oh sure, they were basically just big friendly charities. Then the world got smaller, and people started moving around, and the mafia changed. It became a way for immigrants to band together, have some kind of power in places that wouldn't give them a chance at anything remotely respectable. But the world kept getting smaller and more complex, and eventually that kind of community couldn't form, let alone survive. Why? Not enough shared experiences. Shared experiences. I see. Fancy way of saying the internet came along. Well, yes. Technology negates the kind of physical distance between people. When you spend most of your life online, you end up with more in common with people on the other side of the planet than your own neighbors. Just because of where your recommendations take you. So the immigrant experience disappeared? Fractured, more like. Cracked into a million shards with a hammer. While generational or economic experiences got cemented. The world is more diverse and varied than it's ever been in every sense. Except economically. Wealth inequality is at historical heights. As it has been every year since before I was born. To answer your question, Sarah, that's what binds the members of a criminal organization to one another. Their socio-economic status. House Ikari is at the top. Blue Bloods lie below us. Within each organization, wealth is concentrated among the leadership, of course, but each mafia exists in entirely different strata. I see. I've also read about an organization called the Rust being active here in the city. Are they in the poverty class, then? The Rust? I'd put them in the anarchy class. Glowing tattoos and spiked hair, chrome biceps, and sharpened teeth. The Blue Bloods, for all their faults, can put a tie on a tie and go to work, but I can't see the Rust experiencing any kind of social mobility. Careful, Sosuke, if the Rust heard you being that classist, the Rust wouldn't care about anything I said or who I stand with. They don't need any excuse to start ripping open modders and grabbing whatever they can. things like that happen in this city? Only in the shadows, Sarah. Nowhere you'd ever find yourself. Lift your chin. You really think they'll feel bad for me because of some cuts and scrapes? You're not good at listening to instructions, are you? The prosecution has to get 12 strangers to agree that you killed 5 men. Each charge has to be unanimous, a perfect score. So any chip damage we can do, any doubts we can sow, we take it. And any advantage we're given, we make full use of it. But the advantage you're talking about is my face. Are you really not used to this kind of attention, Sosuke? Look, it may be true that at times some women have expressed, and men, no doubt. All I'm saying is that there's a difference between knowing your strengths and powdering up like this. Pretend it's war paint. Is that how you see it? No, but I'm a grown-up. Finally run out of steam? Onto the grim business then. How'd things go with your investigation? That bad, was it? Nonsense! It was pretty bad. With what I've seen so far, there's no one else who could have killed Chopin. Even if I managed to pick apart all the evidence for the pod's deaths, they've got a police officer who will swear on the stand that he arrested Sosuke standing over his partner's dead body. What's it gonna look like in there? You've never been inside a courtroom? Never as a defendant. I'm just wondering how many cops I should expect. In the gallery, a sea of blue. Cheap intimidation tactics. Yes, but I can't fault them for that. We line up much the same for one of ours. You say that, and yet I don't see any other Ikari around. This is a completely different scenario. And the house can't afford to appear beside a cop killer when they're being audited by the state. How understanding of you. Adonai, I think Sosuke is sad that his friends haven't shown up. Good catch. You were hired by Makoto of House Ikaria, weren't you, Adonai? Surely he would want to be in attendance. Don't be absurd. Makoto shouldn't be transported anywhere without a full security team. Besides which, he shouldn't be put through the long elevator ride to the 48th floor just for my sake. What's so bad about an elevator ride? Is he claustrophobic? No. That is, yes, but you cannot tell anyone, understand? Who the hell would I tell that to? Right. Look, it's illegal to stream trial proceedings under most circumstances, but I'm sure House Ikaria doesn't mind paying a fine. They'll be watching from somewhere in the courtroom. That would be a waste of the house's coin. But I suppose they might consider keeping an eye on the case's progression. As will the Blue Bloods, no doubt. Adonai, I think Sosuke's spirits have rallied. Really? How can you tell? There she is! Emma Rockford herself, here to point out that we didn't examine that fabric. He lifted his gaze and his eyes seemed brighter, as if... Good, now try to keep his spirits high. How do I do that? Think of something fun. Right. Sosuke, shall we arm wrestle? Oh, good morning, Morgan. Good morning, Emma. You seem tired. Want to push this off till next week? Actually, that sounds... Hey. Sorry, but we'll be facing off soon enough. Why not savor the playfulness while we still can? Fair enough. Losing sleep over this case? Not really, no. Things look pretty cut and dry to me. What about you? You toss and turn all night before your big debut as a mob lawyer? Not at all, I slept like a rock. Lucky. I mean, I've been getting good rest, more or less. Just been having a lot of late nights recently. Late nights? Like, going out? No. Ah. Just late night chats. Oh my god, Morgan is so jealous. Chatting about what? God, look at all of them. Never seen so many cops in one building. They'd bring a marching band to the courtroom if they could. Theater. Right. Well, theater and trial weren't all that far apart back in ancient Greece. Would hope we've progressed since then. You don't approve of this show of force, I take it? Is it that obvious? I'd like to say this because of who Chopin's family is, but we both know that's not what this is really about. Cop's dead. The states want to make it clear that that isn't tolerated. Cops volunteer to defend our laws and protect us citizens. Volunteers don't get paid. Besides, cops, courts, the state, all they do is enforce the laws, not defend them. Guns and arms can't defend against corrosion anyway. Rot comes from the deep. So you'd rather that the death of a police officer got the same treatment as any other citizen? Suppose that's not possible. They get increasingly fewer chances to play the victim every year, and they never let the opportunity pass. Epic ASAB Emma? ACAB? I think it's ACAB. It's all cops. A cob. Anyway, Emma is based as always. No, I guess the best I could hope for is that the state makes the same show of force whenever any crime is committed. If they treated every death like the death of a cop, maybe I could have caught HBK by now. You're still on that? Of course, shooting deaths are down, but you know how many missing persons cases there are in this city? How many deaths get written up as mod harvesting attacks gone wrong? It's a big city, Morgan. More than enough blood running through the streets for HBK to launder their kills in. You shouldn't joke like that. What, you don't believe me? Just last month, missing person. The report was filed by their employer when they didn't show up to work, 7 days after they'd last been seen by anyone. They were just some part-time worker, no close friends, no family. They went to work and they came home, paid their bills, and then they disappeared. And no one cared or even noticed until their job didn't get done and those bills went unpaid. No one noticed until they stopped buying in. The body was found a full 2 weeks later. The decay was what happened to them. Blunt force to the back of the head. Something metallic with a sharp corner, we think. It was a roughly cubed machine part I pulled from a dumpster nearby. Oh my god, so she actually did kill them. It fit snugly in my hand, and it caved through his skull like a shovel through snow. Kicked into the bay. Might not have even been weighed down. Just thrown away like a cheap... That's terrible. Did you find any belongings on them? No. So probably a mugging then, right? No, they would have been other injuries from a struggle. Also, if they were getting mugged, they wouldn't open with like smashing somebody's head in. They would have threatened them first. And I don't know how many people would just turn around when they're being mugged. And a thief who accidentally committed murder would be too panicked, too terrified to... You know how muggers think now? I can learn how anyone thinks. Even HBK, with a robust enough profile. Well, good luck building it all by your lonesome. I'm not working on this by myself. Ah, sorry, right. Did you want to beg for mercy real quick before we begin? Now, where would be the fun in that? It's time to go to court. I hope we get another bimbo judge. She was fun. 12:04 p.m., August 15th, 2086. A hashtag Robimbo. Courtroom 48D. The courtroom gallery is quite full today, isn't it? Awash in a sea of pissed off cops. Doesn't exactly shore up one's confidence, does it? 5 counts of murder would be newsworthy on any day of the week. And the fact that one of the bodies belongs to a cop and the crowd was to be expected. Didn't think they'd be so quiet, though. They're all just waiting for the firing pistol before they start casting their stones. Don't let it get to you, Sosuke. They're just posturing. Posturing, I understand. I've been in attendance for my share of tense negotiations. But the bloodlust in those rooms was always mutual. You don't feel any animosity towards these cops? I'm used to summoning my temper on command. I might have forgotten how to get angry for my own sake. You just worry about the jury. What about the adjutant? They cannot be intimidated by muscle, bribed with cash, or disarmed with fine tailoring. All of which makes them quite favored when it comes to prosecuting organized crime. Have you been in court many times before, then? It's an eye for an eye in the world we operate in. We don't file assault charges, we just answer them. Though even that has become rare, the house is elevated. Blue Bloods and Rust and all the rest of the rabble, we're beyond their reach now. When it comes to our peers, we communicate very differently. Must make being a bodyguard pretty boring. I think your work sounds very rewarding and exciting, Sosuke. Thank you. Especially the other day when you were captured and beaten by your rivals. Yes. What I was trying to hint at, Morgan, is that you should not be expecting assistance from the house. Honestly, the thought hadn't crossed my mind. Being on the winning side for once? What the hell would that even feel like? So there won't be any men in black approaching the jury during lunch and offering them paper bags of cash? No. Well, if we do really bad, we won't even make it to lunch, so... Sosuke, what are you staring at? Are you looking for the jury? No, I know they aren't here. Just used to be mandated that juries be physically present for the court proceedings. People felt it was important that they look the accused in the eye. To help them evaluate their character? Why bother? Most people suck at that. Always have. True. Perhaps it was considered part of the punishment, then, to have to look them in their eyes. A punishment for the jury or the defendant? Alright, kiddos. Chins up, shoulders out. Show's about to start. Ah, I just remembered. Do you think the adjutant assigned to this particular case? Obviously, it's gonna be me. Obviously. Let's go! She's back! I mean, that's a gimme! Easy! How? It's 80! What are the chances? There should be at least 83 other personalities in this building's network. At least. Well, Your Honor, thank you for presiding so honorably. I do try. Try. Because it's a trial. Tougher crowd than usual. And that's not counting all the grim monoliths standing tall out there in the gallery. Who died? 5 people, Your Honor. Yikes! What's the damage? 2 counts of manslaughter, 2 counts of homicide in the 2nd degree, and 1 count of homicide in the 1st degree. Manslaughter? Buddy, you trying to set a gold split with all that? What's with the record-setting grind set? Fucking referencing speedrunners. The prosecution stands ready. So shall we begin? Your credit's always good here. Court is now in session, baby! Now let's crack open these opening statements and get this case summarized. Gladly, Your Honor. People of the court, the defendant in this case is a man named Sosuke Ikaria. He was found at the scene of the crime where 2 men were shot to death, one was stabbed in the neck, another had their skull bashed in, and a police officer was impaled through the back with a sword. Ooh. Cop-killing piece of shit. Please pardon any outbursts from the gallery that your mics may inadvertently pick up. Now I understand the scale of the violence on display here may intimidate you, but I want to stress to all of you now that your responsibility here today is neither taxing nor complex. You will hear testimony, you will be shown evidence, and all of it will point towards the truth, that the defendant is the only individual who could have possibly committed these crimes. That is a simple fact, and the only one you need concern yourself with. Ooh, she's cold as ice! But every ice age beckons a kindling, for as ashes call to cinders and embers from formed champions. Defense is ready, Your Honor. Now it did stick to cold logic, so if I follow her with more of the same, it'll end up falling flat. The gallery will never warm up to us. But that can work to our advantage when the jury comes to see these cops as witch hunters eager to start a pyre. Choose the most outlandish words you can. Go for broke. It's not like Master's never taught me anything. I know how to do the razzle-dazzle. My fellow citizens, you were brought here today because an act of violence took place that could only be described as unspeakable. I should know. I was there. I saw the blood on the ground, the bullet holes in the walls. Felt the malevolence that radiated in the air. And I also saw where my client was held prisoner. And I knew exactly where he must have stood because his sweat and blood had stained the tile. My client, a decorated veteran, the man you see standing next to me here, not even fully healed from his torture, was taken into police custody with lacerations, bruises, internal bleeding, broken bones, and while he was in police custody, he somehow sustained a black eye, a busted lip, a broken nose, and a boxed ear. A puzzle which I'm sure any one of the officers in the gallery today would be happy to testify about. You gonna let her say that? You want me to object during an opening statement? Much is resting on the outcome of this trial. 5 men lie dead in the morgue, one of them a police officer, Tariq. Don't speak his name, you mob lawyer bitch! Hang him up! Hang her too! This is... Hey, we like to have fun in this courtroom, put on a good show, but that's because we're on the stage. Any more outbursts from the gallery and I'll clear the entire room. You can all watch the rest on your phones or peeking through the keyhole like a bunch of sweaty looky-loos. That bot is hot. This bot is hot. We love Bimbot AD84. She loves to have a fun time, and she is burdened by the fact that she is a judge. She was born for the stage. Unfortunately, the stage she is on is like a judge's like location, like a, what is it called? The judge's stand. Counselor, let's wrap this up. Yes, Your Honor. The fact of the matter is, on that night, my client was not in any condition to kill anyone, not 4 hardened criminals, and certainly not a trained police officer. And nothing about my client's background, his associations, or that of the victims can change that fact. So as you listen to all of the evidence in this trial, with fairness and impartiality, as I know you will strive to, I only ask that you focus on the reality of this horrible crime, and not on the fiction that the people will try to weave for you. Thank you. Decorated veteran? You telling me you never earned a single commendation? Most push-ups of the day or something? Never mind, I suppose it could have gone much worse. You're too kind. I was trying to be honest. The crowd got agitated, but you maintained a level head and recovered your tempo. Adonai is a master at doing so. I've seen her make comebacks for the most nonsensical mistakes before. In martial arts, they call it an ukemi, a graceful fall. That is basically correct. Well, try not to gracefully fall over when you see the first witness on the docket, Sosuke. What do you mean by that? Your name and occupation for the record? How can that be necessary? If some blathering idiot in the courtroom doesn't already know who I am, then they don't deserve... I know, but would you consider it if only for the sake of ceremony? Ceremony is important and should be respected. Very well! I am Makoto Ikaria of House Ikaria. My occupation is that of a student. Try not to look so smug about it when you blatantly lie. Right, of course, and your position with the Ikaria Financial Group is not salaried. Must I really declare it here? Hard to imagine why the noble house of Ikaria is getting audited. Sosuke, are you alright? Can he see us? He can see me, Rockford, and the adjutant. Witnesses tele-testifying don't really need much else. So he's safe? Yes, Sosuke, he's safe like he was yesterday. Always sitting right where I left him, or standing on a box. I think the hologram's giving him a boost so he can see over the stand. That's good. The boost to his height? That he's safe at home. I'm sorry that he can't see you, Sosuke. Don't be. After how horribly I failed him, I'd like you to speak a bit about the events of August 13th, about the last time you saw the defendant, Sosuke Ikaria. I'm here today, not physically, but here, nonetheless, as a courtesy. That does not mean I will flap my gums like some sort of flapping gum puppet. Permission to treat the witness as hostile incoming. Emma Rockford raking a spoiled brat over the coals? This'll almost be worth the price of admission alone. I understand. It was a traumatic experience, I'm sure. Anyone of normal upbringing would barely be able to recall a single detail, let alone the day's full events. Normal upbringing? I should probably dismiss you so you can get back to your summer studies. Summer studies? Like some common waif? Waif? That's quite the vocab pull. I didn't know they taught that in State Basic. Basic! Was I mistaken? Listen well, Madam Rockford, as I demonstrate to you exactly how misguided you are about my powers of retention. Please do. Played like a damn fiddle. Why wasn't she mentioned during any of our trial preparations? You don't need to mention Rockford. She's a given. Anyway, you can tell that Morgan is just jealous because she never fucking, she never pulled that shit off with Makoto. Art museums, Amethyst, turn-based RPGs. Excellent taste. These are not my favorite, but, like, you know, I respect it. This likes ballrooms, boardrooms, and clicks. Fair. Flower in the mirror, moon on the water, favorite subject, psychology. Anybody could have told you that. Exercises by subject seem not to hear the question. We love a fat bitch. Adonai has only won against her once. So far, every hot streak starts somewhere. Hot streak? I really am going to prison, aren't I? You're not going to prison. They're going to kill you. Where shall I start? As far back as you can. A simple task. For the past year, members of the organization most commonly referred to as Blue Blood Mafia have been making attempts on my life. Did you steal their lunch money or something? I am the primary beneficiary of my grandfather Daisuke Ikaria's will. In common parlance, I am the sole heir to the Ikaria Financial Group. You could buy so much lunch. The group you know as the Blue Bloods have been jealous of my family's financial foresight for decades. I am merely the most recent target of their impotent attempts to nip at our heels. And 2 days ago, on August 13th, how impotent was their attempt then? I was leaving a meeting held on the upper floors of Crane Tower. My security detail escorted me down to the elevators, where we would then proceed down to their canopy access floors. This was all planned out in advance by my head of security, Sosuke Ikaria. But the elevator became stuck with unnatural timing. When Sosuke pried the doors open, we saw that we were stuck between the 62nd and 61st floors. Pried open? With a tool? Leading the witness, Your Honor. He didn't need a tool to open the doors. His bare hands were more than sufficient. Oh, Sosuke out here, kid. We submitted to evidence the defendant's Akita Type 2 military-grade spinal mod, designed to enhance strength, endurance, and reflexes for high-intensity combat scenarios. Yes, sir, it is so admitted. What happened next? The decision was made that we would crawl out onto the 61st floor and head for the service elevators. But once Sosuke and I exited, the elevator started up. It was a trap. We had been cut off from the rest of my detail. You were isolated and defenseless. That must have been... Ha! Hardly defenseless. You really think my personal head of security wouldn't be armed? He had Yoru. Don't tell me. You named your sword? All great swords have names. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Well, very well put. Let the record show that the witness has identified Exhibit B3 as belonging to the defendant. It has a black blade. Jesus Christ. Or it doesn't here. Bladed weapon found at the scene of the crime, impaled in the torso of the victim, Tariq Chopin. Steel is chipped at several points. Identified by Makoto as Sosuke's personal sword, Yoru, taken along with Sosuke down to the lower wards following an ambush with Makoto. This sword was recovered by the police in a known blue blood den in the lower wards, found impaled into the body of Tariq Chopin, and forensics had shown that the only fingerprints on it are those of the defendant. There's still time for you to disown it, Sosuke. You understand nothing about a swordsman's heart, Adonai. Once again, it is your paralegal that has the right of it. Perhaps she should be leading my defense. If this somehow turns into a fencing competition, I will gladly defer to you two. So you, Sosuke, and Yoru were on the 61st floor together. What happened next? When we arrived at the service elevators, Sosuke called them, and then they made a chime. And I didn't clearly see much of what happened next, to tell the truth. Figures emerged from around the corners. They were aiming weapons at me. A red dot shone on my chest. And then Sosuke was there, and the needle was sticking out of his arm. Yoru glinted. Sosuke had drawn it in the blink of an eye. Something glanced off of it and dropped to the floor. I saw a syringe at my feet. Yoru's sheath was thrust into my arms, pushing me back to the elevator, and I landed on my rear. That's clearly a key piece of testimony. Let's play it back 5 times! What matters is he pushed me back to the elevator with Yoru's sheath. How I landed is irrelevant and should be stricken from all public records. The only other thing I saw was Sosuke's back. He slammed his hand against the elevator's control panel and then the doors shut. That's the last time you saw the defendant? The decision was made that I should get on a VTOL as soon as possible, but much of my detail stayed behind to assess what had happened. Yes, they were very helpful to building security and recovering Exhibit 5C, this hypodermic needle gun. The needle gun and projectiles found at Crane Tower where Makoto and Sosuke were ambushed. Same kind of projectile needles recovered from the room where Sosuke was held and interrogated. Fingerprints on the weapon matched those of the victim, Creek. What kind of bonehead would leave evidence like that behind? A bonehead in a rush, perhaps, Your Honor. It does appear to have exhausted its gas canister, so it may have outlived its usefulness. I take it this weapon is a match for the projectile needles found in the room where my client was restrained? Correct. Others exactly like them were recovered from the scene of the ambush as well. Needles identical to those recovered from Crane Tower was... Okay, yeah. Kind of what I figured. Makoto, did you see the faces of the men who attacked you? Ha! All too clearly. I can tell you every detail of their roughshod countenances. Ah! That sounds like a good bit of testimony! Hit it! A pineapple-head-like man in a raincoat-clad hooligan came at us first. They aimed at me, but Sosuke got between us and blocked every shot. With Yoru, he could have closed the distance, but then a dark-eyed scoundrel approached me from the right. And a man with a ridiculous pompadour took advantage of that distraction. I'll never forget the faces of those cowards. They tried to kill me. So whatever happened to them afterwards, I'm sure they deserved it. Makoto's putting his talents for hyperbole on full display. I'll have to fact-check his description in order to get the ball rolling. Okay, what? So, these two came after, yeah. So I have, what, Yoru and the needles? Blocked every shot. No, that's the fucking wrong one. Just one moment to gather my thoughts if the core will... I fucking missed it. Damn it! I didn't want a... I clicked the wrong one. Okay. Yeah, I wanted blocked every shot. No, fucking son of a bitch. I wasn't fast enough. Okay. Yoru could have ridiculous pompadour. They tried to kill me. Oh, they tried to kill me. I was supposed to use the needles on tried to kill me. That's what it was. There. Fucking, I hit the wrong one like 3 times without even calling one. They couldn't have been trying to kill the witness, not with non-lethal projectiles. They fired a lot of them. Witness doesn't weigh that much. Don't try it. This attack was clearly planned with the intent of capturing Makoto alive. Meaning what? The 4 of the case's victims were actually soft-hearted pacifists? There's nothing soft-hearted about what they did to my client after capturing him. Using tools they clearly originally planned to use on the witness. So they're sadists? I'm getting confused here. So is the defense, Your Honor. What matters is the witness has identified the defendant's captors as the 4 Blue Blood victims that he is accused of murdering. Makoto did establish that much, but something about this attack still bothers me. Emma put Makoto on the stand specifically to identify the victims. Is it possible the men who attacked them weren't Craig's pod? I'm gonna stay. I don't disagree, Your Honor. The men who attacked Makoto and took Sosuke captive are the same ones who ended up dead that night. But two questions do occur to me. Why were you safe on that service elevator if Sosuke surely collapsed the very moment it shut? Wouldn't these men have pursued you by any means necessary? That is... I can answer that, Your Honor. When the police inspected the scene, they found the control panel for calling the elevator on the 61st floor was broken. Smashed, in fact. The attackers would have had to manually pry open the doors to even attempt to chase after Makoto. And that would have taken remarkable modded strength. Did you smash the button? Did you mash the button that forcefully, Sosuke? I may have used more force than necessary. I wasn't exactly trying to hold myself back at the time. You hit the controls hard enough to break them? So the Blue Bloods couldn't pursue you further and instead elected to take Sosuke captive. A Sosuke in the hand is better than a Makoto in the bush. The head of Makoto's security would surely have made for an invaluable source of information for planning future attacks, were he made to talk. Are you denying that? No, but I would like to ask the witness one other question. Why did you get off the elevator in the first place? What are you... Hey, what I mentioned in the lobby earlier, that's... The mics might not be picking it up on it for you, but from where I'm staying, I can't help but overhear my client groaning about how badly he failed you. That's not evidence or testimony, and so should be stricken from the record. But we get the idea! So was bailing out early the defendant's big brain idea? As head of my personal security detail, such a decision is ultimately his to make. However, that decision may have been influenced by his knowledge of the fact that I am not especially comfortable in enclosed spaces. What the hell are you doing? Are you trying to humiliate him? In part, I'm also trying to insult you. Had we simply waited, we would have remained safe, but I was not comfortable and felt very warm. So it was not a tactical failure on Sosuke's part per se, just an errand of judgment. Counselor Morgan. What's up? You can disconnect from the call if... Ask me another question. Ask me about how bravely Sosuke defended me. Huh, so that's your angle? We can't all be as naturally gifted at extracting valuable testimony out of spoiled brats as Emma, but I can follow her example. Insult their pride and these Ikarias snap back as reliable as any knee-jerk reaction. And in Makoto's case, with infinitely less resistance than if I had simply asked him to testify. It's usually the lawyers who do the asking, and witnesses who do the answering. This is not very realistic. We asked the witness testify for the court in one more detail about how valiantly Sosuke fought off the attackers. And I guess the people don't object, even though it seems super extra. No, the people don't object, Your Honor. Emma's playing passively. Either I'm onto something here, or I'm walking into a trap. Screw it, all in on the former. Okay, needle guns. Sosuke's medical records. Needles. Sosuke's was outnumbered from the beginning and protecting me the whole time. It didn't matter that we were ambushed or that the Blue Bloods had projectiles. Sosuke took up Yoru in both hands and swatted their needles out of the air like a graceful swatter. He fought off 4 attackers and without sustaining a single injury. Mock him if you dare for being captured. But that's not a failure, not by any general's definition of the word. Hearing Makoto describe Sosuke's heroism, it's almost more impressive the second time. Yeah, his medical records on the without a single injury is easy. He definitely fought without a care for himself, and there's evidence to show it. Unscathed is the last thing anyone would call my client after the offense of that day. One look at the medical data from when he was arrested will tell you that much. What are you getting at, counselor? The defendant's injuries were sustained at the Blue Blood's den, not at Crane Tower. Police didn't find even one drop of blood anywhere near the service elevator. Well, that is a miracle, a bloodless ambush. But the fact that no blood was found makes it all the more painfully obvious what actually happened to that elevator panel. The elevator panel? Ugh. My client broke half the bones in his left hand smashing it up. Did you really? I might have. There was a lot of adrenaline at the time. Did you not form a proper fist? Was your wrist not in alignment with your forearm? As I said, Sarah, there was a lot of adrenaline. Do you deny that his medical record clearly shows his left hand was broken? Your Honor, what does it matter that the defendant broke his left hand closing that elevator? It changes nothing about the witness's testimony. Of course it does. How so? Really? Does it not contradict the testimony? Whatever. It does change the nature of the evidence you had him identify for the court. The katana? Yeah. Yoru. Yoru. Its name is Yoru. We get it. Testimony from a identified Krieg's pod as the four men who attacked. Claims that Sosuke pushed him in the elevator with Yoru's sheath. Before mashing the panel with his left hand to close the elevator doors. Okay. Did you have a point to make, counselor? There's something odd about the katana that's been entered into evidence. Something that makes no sense given what we've learned about the outcome of this ambush. Namely, the swords... Sosuke's sword. Chipped in the personal sword, lower words. Match the right hand. Blood residue at various points of the blade matches the DNA of Victor. Odd about the katana. Outcome of this ambush. I'm very confused what this is, because it's like his right hand, which he didn't break, so that's fine. The blood is from killing the people. No, because, like, if it was a bloodless ambush, then there wouldn't be any blood on the blade, I guess. It's just in terms of things, because chipping could come from blocking the shots. But the blood... There we go. This sword is covered in blood. How can that be if the case if no blood was shed at Crane Tower? There was enough blood shed in the lower wards to dye the harbor, including the blood of Tariq Chopin, who I may... Okay, so once again, what I meant to direct was the fingerprints that were found on the sword's hand. What? Why? Fingerprints belonging to Sosuke's right hand. Yeah, but that's not broken. You're contradicting yourself, counselor. We've already discussed how your client's left hand that he broke closing off the elevator. There's nothing contradictory about him using his right arm to wield the blade. Is it because he's left-handed? Is that what it is? Like, that you're supposed to assume that he's left-handed because he used his left hand to smash the thing open? It can be like this because Sosuke has two hands. The people are correct. The sword found at the scene of the crime has my client's right hand fingerprints on its handle. Despite the... Swing it with both hands. I did not remember that. Okay. Like a graceful swatter, specifically. Oh, yeah, he did say that. So the little did the little tyke misremember? It was a chaotic situation where he feared for his life. The court should hardly expect him to have kept track of such an inconsequential detail. Have you already forgotten my magnanimous powers of recollection? Her tactics from earlier backfired. I'll have you know I can recite all my subordinates' birthdays down to the hour. Write them all down so I can calculate their moon signs later. It doesn't matter whether the witness is mistaken about Sosuke's grip, Your Honor, because we have a much bigger issue to address. Why this sword has only my client's fingerprints on it. Makoto testifies that Sosuke wielded this katana in his defense, an act of bravery that ended with my client face down on the floor of Crane Tower. He later woke up held captive in the lower wards. I'll state the obvious here and say that while he was unconscious, he was moved. And so the sword we have on record must also have been handled by... our poor victim, Krieg, of course. What do you mean? Sosuke was knocked unconscious at Crane Tower. That means that someone else must have brought his sword down to the lower wards. And the only people who had the opportunity to do so would have been his captors. You mean his victims? Withdraw. Either voluntarily or in response to an objection sustained by a judge, attorney may withdraw their comments. The defense is forgetting a fairly simple fact, Your Honor. There's more than one way to hold a sword. Oh, worm? In case the defense needs it clarified, Krieg could have simply held the sword by its scabbard. No, he fucking couldn't. That's not possible, Your Honor. Makoto's already testified that Sosuke left the sword scabbard with him when he thrust him back into the elevator. Yoru's sheath was thrust into my arms, pushing me back into the elevator, and I landed on my rear. I see. And since a cursed sword can't be resheathed until it's tasted blood... Yes, Your Honor. Well said. We would have found the scabbard at the Blue Blood's den if Krieg or his men had taken it with them. Instead, I imagine Makoto took it home. You think he took key evidence from his own assault and kept it from the police? Of course I did. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. As if I would trust officers of the law to properly handle a family heirloom such as precious as Yoru's sheath. Impressive insight, Adonai. But what does this actually mean? Is there some mistake with how the evidence was handled? There's no mistakes here. This was all done with intention. The intention to frame my client. By putting his fingerprints onto that sword after the real culprit had already handled it. What a load of bullshit. And the crowd goes wild. Though it does make a certain kind of sense, because it's the truth. I did wipe the katana's handle down after removing it from Trey's throat. Sosuke just happened to be foolish enough to pick it up himself afterwards. It's frustrating having to keep all my best cards up my sleeve this time around. But the look on Emma's face when I do get to toss them out is... The people are more than ready to counter if it pleases the court. Oh. The defense has made an admirable effort to barrel ahead with this theory. Yeah? Admirable, but predictable. With the Foundation this week charging ahead and hoping the court won't notice is the only option. Let us speak of the facts. This Krieg character led a targeted ambush on the heir to House Ikaria, knowing he'd be guarded by a full security team. The Blue Bloods successfully sabotaged and intercepted Makoto's elevator at the precise floor they wanted, meaning they knew exactly where he'd be and when. And they brought with them drugs capable of disabling a veteran with military-grade mods. Planning and attention to detail may be foreign concepts to the defense, but they should at least be able to recognize them. So is the defense seriously suggesting that after all that preparation, Krieg's pod wouldn't bother to wear gloves? I'm glad you asked so nicely. Needle guns. Yeah. Where do I put this? We don't need to speculate about whether they wore gloves or not. Not when we have Krieg's fingerprints on a weapon recovered from the crime scene. That is a pretty good point, actually. Yes, those guys were sloppier than we thought. Those blackguards were barefaced when they attacked us. Idiots. As if there wouldn't be repercussions for their actions. The least they could have done was disguise themselves. Strike that from the record, Your Honor. Along with any future comments that suggest the Ikaria would want revenge against these victims. I was only speaking a plain truth. Krieg was their leader, correct? If even Krieg wasn't wearing gloves, it's hard to imagine that none of them got their prints onto Yoru. Unless the sword was, indeed, wiped down at some point afterwards. Like right around the time the true culprit was looking for Sosuke to take the fall. It's a spicy theory. It's just that, Your Honor. A theory. A far-fetched, unstable theory that stacks prepositions upon each other. Presupposition, like a flapjack chef substituting quantity for quality. I'll rephrase. This inconsistency is easily answered without jumping through the defense's arbitrarily, absurdly arranged hoops. That's a little better. We already know the Blue Bloods had successfully taken down the Ikari's head of security. We already know that they went out of their way to take the defendant captive despite him not being their original target. Furthermore, as the defense is belabored, we know that they decided to take a useless piece of steel with them from the scene of their crime. Useless? If we ask why, the answer is obvious. Because orcas are superstitious and immature. They wanted a trophy, and what is there to do with a trophy other than to polish it? That's what the cloth was for. The cloth from Creek's desk. I knew she flagged it in ARCs for some reason, but she thought this many steps ahead? The defense is correct. The sword was wiped down before Sosuke took it up as his murder weapon, by the very same victims he'd go on to claim with it. That is a completely logical explanation. Damn it! How do we respond to that, Adonai? We... check. We don't. I can't. It makes perfect sense. So does that mean she's described what actually happened? Not at all. I wiped off the sword myself because my prints were on it. Same as I wiped my prints off every other... Right. If I can't find fault with Emma's conclusion, I need to find fault with the logic that led her there. I see. And how do you do that? By adjusting my aim. As the people say, Your Honor, no one's fingerprints but my client's are on the murder weapon. That only makes sense if he's guilty. Or being framed. And there's no evidence to suggest that he's been framed because his captors had valid reasons for wiping off the sword. That's true. They did have good reason to wipe off the sword. But that's not the murder weapon I'm referring to. Let's see. There's the gun also. Take a closer look at the bat found at the scene of the crime. Our forensic scientists have looked at it quite closely, I assure you. And they found many prints on it. Many partials. Meaning the bat was never wiped down. Exactly? Exactly. Was it not wiped down? I thought it was wiped down. Okay, I guess it is the Magus. I was just picking the bat because it had a lot of partials and no specific fingerprints, but I guess it was never wiped down. This gun is the murder weapon I'm referring to. What? The police are confident that this Mag US is the gun that was used to kill Tanks and Creek. And your client was arrested with it on his person. And it has your client's prints on it. But it was owned by Tanks. The record shows that Sosuke's are the only fingerprints on that doohickey. That means Tank's guy had never laid a finger on his own gun. It's entirely possible that Tank simply liked to polish his gun too. Phrasing. So he was polishing it right up until the moment his captor grabbed it and used it against him. More phrasing. Was it before or after his internal bleeding that my client took the gun off Tank's without even laying a finger on it first? Before or after being tortured that he got the gun with no struggle? They could have wrestled over the gun while it was out of reach. Tanks had no injuries besides the hole in his chest. How do you get into a struggle and not get so much as a scratch? The likelihood of that scenario would seem to come down to the order in which each individual died, no? Yes, Your Honor. Then perhaps we ought to hear some more detailed testimony about that. Of course. The defense has no more questions for this witness, Your Honor. We don't object. Hold on, what are you saying? Okie dokie then, closing the connection. I said wait, is Sosuke... Makoto seemed to be in good spirits, wouldn't you say? Yeah, he was his usual irreproachable self. So how can you find something about that to be depressed over? I'm ashamed that he testified at all. His appearance here runs the risk of sullying my house's visage with my mistakes. Well, he couldn't exactly slip the subpoena by claiming he had homework to do. You of all people should understand that the house doesn't have to appear in court if they truly don't want to. A fine levied on your accounts is always preferable to smudge staining your reputation. But he did testify. Yes, and no doubt went directly against one or more family elders to do so. should not be incurring debts for my sake. So he put himself at a disadvantage for you. Do you think Makoto would want you to apologize? Or do you think he'd want you to thank him? He's young. He doesn't know what he wants yet. We did it! We survived the courtroom for a second. And I actually made a profit. Yumi Sato, medical examiner. Yumi. Sarah. Dr. Sato, we're very grateful for your work sorting through the large number of reports related to this case. Phew. Yeah, 5 bodies, all high priority. Had my head underwater for a good while there. We'd prefer not to tax you with repeating every grisly detail, but if you could, would you please walk the court through the time of death for each victim and the manner in which they were determined? Right. From the top, Ankerton, aka Tanks, had a mishmash of street legal and chop shop mods along his forearms. And none of them were particularly up to date, but they were all working. They did monitor his heart rate. Tank's heart stopped at 9:44 p.m. Cause of death was... The slug had a hollow design, intended to shatter inside the target. There was no mistaking that he was killed by his own gun, the MAG US, from a distance of 1 to 2 meters. Yeah, okay, so it's just what she said. Next up is Sungmin Trey Trench. He also had relatively low-end mods installed, and they show his heart stopping at 9:45 p.m. He died from exsanguination, blood loss resulting from a laceration across his neck by a sharp metal blade. That wasn't the only injury his body sustained, though, was it? No, it was not. Posthumously, his skull was... Cause of death... Smashed in with blunt force posthumy, destroying the majority of systems in their optical mods. Traces of wood splinters found in the skull match the broken bat near the body. Got it. Heavens Miller Smiles received a puncture wound straight through his jugular vein, and the blade was withdrawn, exacerbating blood loss, and he was likely unconscious within seconds of falling to the ground. Miller had mods, but had evidently gone to great lengths to remove all monitoring tech from them, and he was not found with any electronics on his person. Using purely medical means, I narrowed his time of death down to a window of 10 minutes before 9:40 and 9:50 p.m. Single stab wound, yeah. 13 centimeters deep. Even though I killed him third and was the second to die. That brings us to Creek. Yes, like Tanks, Lakers Creek Kristoff was shot once with a hollow slug from a distance of 1 to 2 meters. However, the slug penetrated just beneath their solar plexus and failed to completely shatter when it impacted a low-end spinal brace mod. As a result, Creek didn't die immediately. It was my medical opinion that Creek would have slowly bled out over the course of about 5 minutes. Their mod did not have biomonitoring capabilities, so like with Miller, I've done what I can to narrow down the time of death to 10-minute window between 9:40 and 9:50 p.m. So he was barely modded, and he stayed conscious that whole time anyway? Cause of death, childhood injury or growth defect. Indicate DT3, but no signs of disease seem to exist. No metformin in the bloodstream. Subject recovered due to natural robustness. He was a very robust guy to have not died. But we do have one other context clue to work with. This datapad was found very close to Creek's body, and technicians confirmed that it requires Creek's fingerprints for most functions. That means it's unlikely that anyone else would have been able to manipulate it. And we found that the last action taken on it was an attempted dark card transaction that failed at 9:44 p.m. What could cause a dark card transaction to fail? Either they hit cancel or their card itself was jostled, interrupting the scan. As if the datapad was suddenly dropped? Speculation? How much qualification does one need in order to understand that card readers can be finicky, Your Honor? True enough, chip, swipe, pin, tap. Just let me buy the damn balloon animal, you clown. So, taking that digital evidence into account, Creek must have been shot almost the exact same time as Tanks. Thank you. Thank you. There's one more body you examined for this case, yes? Officer Tariq Chopin. Didn't need to determine his time of death. As a patrol officer, he had a standard suite of police-issued biomonitors. So we knew that Officer Chopin's heart stopped at 10:14:04 p.m. Triggering automatic 10999 alert. Officer down. Lighting up that crime scene like a firecracker and ensuring every cop in the city would come running. Royally pissed and safety's off. Chopin was impaled through his back by a long, thin blade, severed his aorta, and as a result, he died instantly. To summarize then, penetrate posterior, insight, biomonitor, stab slash through, impaled, no other injuries of note. To summarize then, we can include the Tank's gun was taken from him before 9:44 p.m. He and Creek were then shot with it. Their attacker, out of ammunition, took up a sword and stabbed Mill in the throat, before slicing into Trey's neck. This individual then proceeded to posthumously crush Trey's skull by striking it so hard that they shattered a baseball bat, as Creek bled to death on the other side of the room. Finally, when Officer Chopin entered the scene, they stabbed him in the back, before finally being apprehended by Officer Rogers. That's all correct, as far as we understand it. So now Rockford's put together a timeline. It's probably helpful for the jury, putting it all in chronological order. But have we actually learned anything new about the culprit's actions? We have. Emma's brought her along on the stand to establish the culprits. She wanted to establish the starting time of all the murders. Wasn't that pretty obvious from just one autopsy? Tanks died first and Mods confirmed it. Well, yes, but the fact is that Tanks and Creek died first, combined with where their shooter stood. Tells in what part of the room the culprit must have started their killing spree. Oh, so just the position. Okay. Correct, because Creek and Tanks died first, and they were both shot from within 1 to 2 meters. We know it was the culprit that must have started taking action right by the desk. And not by the door to the holding room. Indeed. So the likelihood that my client broke out of from there is not very high at all. Check. Yes? An abundance of DNA evidence establishes that the defendant was indeed held in the other room, but clearly he didn't remain there. His captors must have taken him out to question him in the main room, and dragged him in front of the desk where Tank's gun would be within reach. You're the one who's reaching. You have evidence on the contrary? A better explanation for how he got out of where he was being held? Can't exactly propose that the real killer set him free as a scapegoat. The forensics are clear. My client was gagged and bound in that room. But clearly they had to cut him loose to question him. A mistake that ended up costing them their lives. Do you think that's true, Sosuke? I'm not positive, of course, but my body is telling me I was held in that room from the time I woke up until I got myself free. Emma's theory about the Blue Bloods being dumb enough to let Sosuke near a gun isn't perfect, but it's still a theory. I don't have jack shit to counter with because not even Sosuke knows how I let him out. If the defense has no objections, then they'll just have to take this L and meekly move on to their cross-examination. Adonai, that made you sound very feeble. You've developed a habit of only using we when I'm winning. Fix it. That made us sound very feeble? Why do I have to get roped in? Emma's already established a timeline and an order of events. I could pick at the details, but she's close enough to the truth already. I know the truth firsthand, and about every death except Chopin. In his case, Emma and I are on even footing. So what's my advantage? What do I know that everyone else is mistaken about? Murder weapons. Right, the murder weapons. Everyone thinks Miller was stabbed in the neck by the katana. I'm the only one who knows my knife was there. There's gotta be a way I can use that information to my advantage here without revealing that I have it or how I got it. Also, just like, I don't know, stabbing somebody in the side of the neck with a katana and only going 13 centimeters in, and like that's ridiculous. Why wouldn't you just cut his throat at that point? It's ridiculous to use a katana for that. I'm walking a razor's edge here, at least it's thematically appropriate. The defense is ready to begin our cross-examination, Your Honor. Dr. Sato, you were asked to examine all 5 bodies. Did you visit the crime scene? I did not. Have not. Photos and other ARCS data were provided to me in aid of my examination. Surely the defense isn't objecting to a little virtual work. Of course not. After all, had anything been added or removed from the crime scenes, the ARC would show it. There's no fooling it once it's been set up. So, I forget if I'm supposed to go straight in or if I'm supposed to, like, go around. Victims Trey and Miller were both attacked with a blade. Exactly how fast did they die? Trey had his throat slashed and blood found on his hands suggests that he had time to reach up to his neck in response. But he would have quickly stumbled back and collapsed on the floor dead. Miller wouldn't have lost much blood at the moment his neck was punctured. For that kind of wound, the weapon acts as a stopper. But once that stopper was removed, he would have lost consciousness in mere seconds. And while the blade was still in his neck, it was there for more than a second, he too would have reflectively reached up, presumably to try and grab the blade. Is there proof he grabbed the blade? Yeah, his fingerprints aren't on it. Is there any evidence that he tried to grab the razor-sharp katana lodged in his neck? He had his own blood on his right hand, but there were no cuts on it. Because he grabbed the knight's handle, not a sword's edge. So it stands to reason the blade was withdrawn very quickly. By the time his hands reached up to his neck, it must have been gone. One of many small inconsistencies with this katana theory I can shine a light on. Will that be enough? Stabbing Miller's neck so precisely and so fast, that would be quite a feat of swordsmanship. State again conclusion, Your Honor. Comments withdrawn, quick as a blade. Have you ever seen a stab wound like the one that killed Miller inflicted by a long blade, and wielded in one hand by a man experiencing heavy blood loss? No, I can't say that I have. Now, whether that maneuver is impressive or improbable, well, I'm a doctor, not a fencer. And Sosuke doesn't own a rapier. Does the katana fit the puncture wound? No, it doesn't. Did you find that the stab wound on Miller's neck fit the sword that the police recovered? Approximately. That doesn't sound conclusive. The entry wound is slightly smaller than I would expect from such a precise stab. The sword hand must have barely trembled, but it's within tolerable ranges. Furthermore, DNA on the tip of the sword is a match for Miller. Damn it, just because I happened to drag it across where his blood had dripped. And, of course, there isn't any other implement in the scene that fits the wound better. No, of course there isn't. Could you speak a bit more about the manner of Officer Chopin's death? Well, to reiterate, his body was found with a katana stuck through his back. It had punctured his heart, killing him. There was massive blood loss at the scene. At least in part because the wound in question was agitated, I suppose I'd say. What does agitated mean? That doesn't sound strong, but I don't have a lot to go off of. Sure, why not? What do you mean by agitated? Honestly? As though after impalement the blade was moved around inside the wound. As if it had become... There it is. As if it had become stuck and someone was struggling to remove it. London mentioned that Sato found this wound odd, but here specifically say the blade had become stuck. That's interesting. Thank you, Dr. Sato. I think I can speak for us all when I say that I found that very enlightening. Dr. Sato, you just testified that Officer Chopin was impaled from behind. Did this occur on the spot where his body was found? Yes, it did. The body showed no signs of being moved. I'm curious, then. What was there for the sword to get stuck on? Huh? Well, if Chopin was in the center of the room, standing upright, I mean, it would have gotten caught... It wouldn't have gotten caught on the air, right? bone, perhaps? Surely you examined the wound inside and out. Did you see marks on his ribcage where the blade had caught? No, I didn't. Then it stands to reason that the blade didn't get caught on anything inside Mr. Chopin. It got caught on the floor. Pardon? You need to take greater advantage of the arcs, Counselor Morgan. Learn to flip things on their head. Entire rooms, if need be. You'd see there's a clear indentation on the floor that lines up perfectly with Mr. Chopin's wound. How did you think the tip of the sword got chipped? You're saying the sword got stuck in the floor. That's what the facts are saying. Do you disagree? I mean, that would only happen if he was laying on the ground when he stabbed him, right? Because if you got impaled through the back and then fell over, the sword wouldn't, like, stick in there far enough that it would stick through the floor. Like, it wouldn't be held in place. The sword couldn't have gotten stuck in the floor. The sword could have gotten stuck. No. Of course that's not possible. He was stabbed in the back while standing up, so he would... Well, yeah, but that wouldn't have enough force to impale a sword into a floor. Well, yes, if you want to get technical. Suppose if Chopin was impaled and then fell face first, it makes perfect sense for the sword to get caught in the floor as he collapsed on top of it. I disagree. So we can conclude that after being impaled, Chopin fell over with the sword still in his torso, driving the sword into the ground. Then his attacker aggravated the wound by trying to retrieve the sword from his corpse. Does that sound right? What? Are you asking me? Sort of, asking the room, I guess. Well, I believe I can answer. What you're describing makes sense, Dr. Sato, but only up until we consider this, again, the fingerprints on the sword handle. If my client really did impale Turig Chopin and get his sword stuck doing so, why would he try to retrieve it with only one hand? Because he had to retrieve it with one hand. You yourself already elucidated that the defendant's left hand was broken when he destroyed the elevator panel at Crane Tower. His left hand was too damaged for him to even grip a sword? That doesn't square with this piece of evidence. Oh, left-hand fingerprints. The Mag-US? How could my client's left hand be too damaged to grip his sword, and yet also capable of gripping the Mag-US? That oddity is hardly impossible to explain. We've already determined that the Mag-US was fired twice before the sword was used at all. Firing such a weapon with a broken hand surely rendered his left useless. Ugh, It is difficult to wield a sword with a damaged hand, isn't it, Sosuke? Historically, even the loss of a pinky on your non-dominant hand was considered enough to render you relatively defenseless. Is that why Yakuza would offer to cut off fingers as a recompense for offenses? Oh, fucking first time, really epic first time chat, unfulfilled shirt tail. Fucking get the hell out of here. That's right, Sarah. In fact, cut the chatter and save the history lesson. He had to pull the sword loose with one hand because his left was useless? Looking at all the forensics pulled from the katana, that's... Your Honor, the people claim that my client had to use one hand to retrieve this sword because his other hand was disabled. But does the evidence actually suggest that? What do you mean? Forensics performed on my katana found my client's right hand fingerprints on the handle. But what grip are the prints a match for? That's what I was thinking. If it's impaled in the ground, you don't grab it, like, thumb down. You grab it thumb up and try to pull it out. Using your biceps instead of your triceps. Let me just give it a quick think here as I meticulously analyze the position of each finger. A normal grip. The grip is normal! Do you mean to say the thumb is facing towards the blade, Your Honor? Well, yeah, but isn't it easier to say he held it like normal? If my client only held the sword with his right hand normally, Your Honor, that would mean he held the handle like that even as he tried to jostle the blade free from the floor it was impaled in. Which is far from impossible. But if, Your Honor, the court has questions about it, how exactly how the defendant was positioned when he was found standing above Officer Chopin's corpse, I believe the people's next witness will be able to answer all of them. That can only mean it's time to finally face off with the arresting officer. Chopin's partner. Very well. Then let us summon to the stand. Null name not found. What? What? Is that a family or given name? What? Yeah, got one big ol' error right there, and it's a classic. Witness not found. Literally. He ain't here. What? He had hours to get here. What the hell could he possibly be? Our star witness is a no-show. Is this good news or bad news? Like hitting the jackpot on the world's sketchiest slot machine. Feels good, but you get the feeling that the staff is going to make you pay for it. That's idiotic! Pay for it when? Fine, I'll finish it myself. Right about now. Perhaps it's for the best then, Your Honor. Oh, she's gonna kill me. We can save the court the trouble by wrapping things up here and now. The facts are simple, and the defense has failed to refute them. Thus, the people are calling for summary judgment. Already? The defendant is the only one with his prints on the gun. He is the only one with the prints on the katana. His own employer testified to the court that he was attacked and captured by 4 of the 5 victims. He was found and arrested standing over the body of a dead cop before 2 more officers arrived and secured the scene. That must be Reyes in London she's referring to. As the only living person left at the scene of the crime, there would be no one else who could have committed these murders. She's on a tear, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't entertaining, but it's only because she's on tilt. She was thrown off by our witness flaking, and that caused her to overstep. She just fired off a lot of claims in quick succession, which is the weakest one. Where do I counterattack? Only suspect? Let's see, murder weapons I know. Only suspect is solid because we can't... There's a possibility of other suspects because the window is open. But we know the murder... She doesn't have all the murder weapons. The murder weapons that Sosuke's prints are on aren't pointing to anyone else. Without that knife, I can't prove... Oh, okay. How would that... Okay. I'm gonna go with the only suspect then. She just claims that Sosuke's the only one who could have committed these murders. She can't possibly prove that. She can't prove that there wasn't anyone else there that night because I actually was. So unlike her, I can prove the possibility of another party being present without having to reveal their identity. The people are mistaken, Your Honor. My client wasn't the only other person there that night. And there's evidence to show it. Used to wipe prints. Red ink. Broken bat. Oh, the dark card. Yeah. What is that? The dark card found lodged into Creek's data pad? That's right. The perfect payment option when neither you nor the businesses you frequent like attaching names to faces. We've already discussed it that within moments of Creek's death, a transaction was being attempted on his data pad. A transaction made using this dark card. But whatever for? Perhaps some of the handful of illicit substances that were found at the scene of the crime. Oh, crap. Yeah, almost forgot. These guys were drug dealers. And drug dealers get customers, Your Honor. Customers that can be very temperamental when things go south. Are you trying to suggest the killings were the result of a drug deal gone wrong? I mean, they sort of were. A drug deal made in person at a Blue Blood stronghold? Dark cards require a passkey and a fingerprint. The card would be useless if its owner wasn't physically present for the transaction. A transaction that might be abruptly cancelled if tensions boiled over. A potential buyer would likely have been across the desk from Creek. The same spot in the room that we've established the killer must have started their rampage. Cute idea, counselor, but there's no meat to it. We know that Creek was using the data pad before he died. We know that Dark Card was processing a transaction at the time. But for some reason, you've made the assumption that he was selling, when the simplest explanation was that he was buying, using the dark card that he owned. The dark card belonged to Creek. How will you respond? I don't need to respond with evidence. I just need to point out the flawed evidence she's constructed her argument upon. Wiped of all prints. Yeah, there's no prints. They wiped the prints off. Characterization, Your Honor. The people are claiming that the dark card in the evidence record belonged to the victim, Creek. despite the fact that it has no fingerprints on it either. What? If that dark card had belonged to Creek, he would have had to insert it into his data pad with his teeth. Yuck. So, who did the dark card belong to? Perhaps a customer who didn't like his prices. A disgruntled customer could have wiped their prints off the card to hide the fact that they were ever there. That's absurd. If a customer brought that dark card with them to the crime scene, why the hell wouldn't they take it with them when they left? It was stuck in the data pad. They could have pulled a little harder. They could have taken the data pad with them. Who would leave behind something that valuable? The card is worthless to everyone but its owner. To whom it could be priceless. Why would they choose to leave it behind? The answer to that is simple. If I'm honest, we're discussing the possibility of a deal going south. What could cause that in the first place? Aggressive negotiating tactics? I love this track that's playing, but it is very loud. Or a customer who couldn't pay. This customer could afford a dark card, and yet they couldn't pay. Hold on, you're trying to say that all these deaths, all this carnage, you think it's all because their card got declined? Hard to live down that kind of faux pas. Murdering 4 or 5 people in order to skip paying your bill is pretty aggressive, but if you need your fix. Was there any indication that contraband was taken from the scene of the crime? Your Honor, that is difficult to say. Without knowing their inventory before the crime occurred, we cannot rule out the possibility. That was a little lackluster of a pushback. Is she really that thrown off by the witness playing hooky? Well, I hate to do this because I love spending time with you all and having a physical body and being ensouled, but it does seem like I have to declare a recess while we wait. Perfectly reasonable, Your Honor. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard! What? Court is now in recess. Anyway, I am very hungry, and I'm thirsty, and I don't have water next to me. So I think that we're going to cut this one a little short. I wanted to get through the courtroom section before I called it. And this seems as good a place as any. Apologies for the shorter stream. I'll see y'all later. Have an excellent weekend. Bye-bye.